Chapter 1796, Devil Church's Lair. In a day's time, Jen Wushuang went to a few places and killed a total of 7 blood devils. The experts from Green Fire Palace were even more astonished. One should know that a day's time. To them, it wasn't even enough for them to rush their journey, let alone kill the blood devils. Next, is to Devil Church's Lair. Jen Wushuang's gaze was cold. According to the information that Green Fire Palace had found, the remaining 6 blood devils from Devil Church were in the lair. Jen Wushuang then led the experts from Green Fire Palace to Devil Church's lair. Devil Church's lair was originally in Tang of the East, the imperial city in Tang of the East. Old 3, that's where Devil Church's lair is at. Wang Yuan pointed at a huge city engulfed in a crimson fog in front. It was originally the imperial city in Tang of the East, but it was renamed to Devil City. Theoretically, Devil City has blood devils attending to garrison duty personally, so there is no one from Green Fire World that dares to act wildly here. However, somehow or other, the 13 blood devils from Devil Church still joined forces to set up a huge formation in the city. The power of the formation is impressive. Is it? Jen Wushuang looked calm. He glanced at Devil City, then he raised his palm and pointed at Devil City from afar. He pointed. Hong. The huge formation that covered Devil City instantly cracked without any struggle. The formation broke and the experts from Devil Church in Devil City were immediately startled. Countless figures soared into the air. Those leading were of course the remaining 6 blood devils. ****. Green Fire Palace, how dare you? The 6 blood devils were angry and they let out roars. But very soon, their attentions were caught by the person in front of the people from Green Fire Palace. This person, the 6 blood devils exchanged a look and they were surprised. The 6 of them were the higher ranked among the blood devils. Among the 6 of them, there were 3 who had already reached the level of chaotic real god. But they couldn't see through Jen Wushuang's aura. They could feel that Jen Wushuang was powerful, but they couldn't tell which level Jen Wushuang was at. "Hey, who are you?" A bald man among the 6 blood devils asked in a deep voice. The bald man was the number 1 boss among the 13 blood devils. Green Fire Palace, Jen Wushuang. Jen Wushuang said calmly. "It's you." The 6 blood devils were surprised and they had obviously heard of Jen Wushuang before. "Humph. I never expected you to return from Eternal Chaotic World," the bald man smirked coldly. "Jen Wushuang, I think you are a genius. Why did you return when you were doing so well in Eternal Chaotic World?" "I came back to take revenge." Jen Wushuang's voice was cold. He then waved and there were heads that were thrown out. "There were 13 blood devils and I have killed 7. Now, there are only 6 of you left." Looking at the heads floating in the void, the 6 blood devils who were originally calm were raging. ****, how dare you kill our brothers? The bad man was angry. "Not only them, but all of you also have to die." Jen Wushuang looked expressionless. A simple reply seemed to have announced a death sentence for the 6 of them. "Humph, don't think you are unmatched after you killed my 7 brothers. Today, I will turn Green Fire Palace into a bloodbath and take revenge on the behalf of my 7 brothers." The bald man let out a cold humph. "Let's do this together and kill him." Hong. 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 6 fierce auras instantly exploded. Any one of the 6 auras could make countless experts from Green Fire Palace feel hopeless. However, to Jen Wushuang, they were too weak. Die. With just one word, it wasn't the pressure of divine might but 5 fine sword intentions that appeared in front of him. The 5 fine sword intentions swept out and the speed was so fast that the few real gods couldn't even see the shadow. Pest. 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 5 sword lights pierced the eyebrows of 5 blood devils. Instantly, there were 5 bodies falling. The 6 blood devils were soaring with rage and wanted to attack Jen Wushuang, but there were 5 of them that died instantly and only the bald man was left standing there. How is it possible? The bald man's eyes were wide and he looked at Jen Wushuang with a horrified look. It was as though he had seen a ghost. It stirred billowing waves in the bottom of his heart. He had heard about Jen Wushuang before and he knew about Jen Wushuang's outstanding achievements. Even though Zhen Wushuang had once brought about a radical change in the war against Jin Kingdom, Zhen Wushuang was nothing in his eyes. Because Zhen Wushuang had only been a universe god then, and he was already a real god, a chaotic real god. He had thought killing a universe god was as easy as killing an ant. Hence, he didn't care about Zhen Wushuang at all in the beginning. Even when Zhen Wushuang had returned, he had reckoned that Zhen Wushuang was only slightly bigger than an ant and he didn't care. But who would have guessed that Zhen Wushuang had become so ferocious? He had become so powerful. The 13 blood devils were like babies before Zhen Wushuang. Do you know why I didn't kill you? Zhen Wushuang took one step forward and stood 10 meters before the bald man. His cold gaze fixed onto the bald man and he was looking at him as though he was looking at an ant. No, even worse than an ant. Why? The bald man stuttered. Because I don't want you to die so easily, Zhen Wushuang said coldly. Back when you 13 blood devils destroyed Tang of the East, you were the one who killed the higher-ups of Tang of the East, right? You did it personally, right? The bald man stuttered and he was at a loss for words. Do you know that among the people that you killed, there was my benefactor, my wife's father, and my brother? Zhen Wushuang uttered every word clearly and there was boundless rage and hatred in his eyes. Old Tu Young Zishuan, Emperor Tang, Emperor Xiao, which one of them were not related to him? They had died because of the 13 blood devils, because of nonentity-like people. For them, I will not let you die so quickly. I have to torture you for 1,000 years. No, for 10,000 years. I want you to live in complete agony. Try this. Zhen Wushuang said, and there was crimson light that burst out of his eyes. The crimson light was brilliant and it looked just like a crimson sun. The moment the bald man saw the crimson light, he was dumbfounded. Suddenly, rumble. A boundless prison engulfed him. Secret skill of soul attack, 18 Azura Hell, descended. Chapter 1797. The Mastermind. The 18 Azura Hell was a soul attack secret skill that was used specially to torture people. For the person who was attacked, if his consciousness were not strong enough and he was unable to block or fight his way out of the secret skill, what awaited him would be endless torture. For this secret skill, Zhen Wushuang used it frequently when he was still a universe god. However, ever since he had made a breakthrough to become an ultimate real god, he rarely used it. Although he did not use it frequently, he had long mastered this secret skill completely when his absolute abilities were combined with his current soul level. By unleashing it then, what awaited the bald-headed man was torture from 18 hells. Hysterical roars could be heard from the bald-headed man. The bald-headed man's eyes had turned a scarlet color a long time ago and he was completely insane. No. Spare my life. Please spare my life. I beg of you. The bald-headed man had started to beg for his life crazily. As Zhen Wushuang's soul level increased, the tortures would become more frightening when the secret skill was unleashed. It was unleashed with Zhen Wushuang's full power and even top experts in the real god ranking list might be unable to endure the hell's torture in the secret skill, let alone the bald-headed man. Madness and hysteria. Everyone that moment could see the bald-headed man's expression clearly. With regards to that, no one from the Green Fire Palace pitied him in the slightest. Instead, they were extremely delighted and excited like never before. For the past few years, the Green Fire Palace had been suppressed badly by the Devil Church. Their hatred of the Devil Church was definitely not weaker than of the Jin Kingdom back then. As for the bald-headed man, he was the boss of the 13 Devil Bloods in the Devil Church and he was experiencing a great amount of pain from the torture. As for his 12 other brothers, all of them were killed. After a long time, the bald-headed man experienced all kinds of tortures in the 18 hells and his consciousness had also started to recover slowly. However, at that moment, he was completely exhausted and his face had long become twisted to its maximum. Moreover, his eyes were still scarlet like before. Kill me, I beg of you to kill me. A soft voice could be heard from the bald-headed man. He had already lost all hope. At that moment, he only wished to die quickly. With that, he would be freed. Do you think that it will be so easy for you to die? Zhen Wushuang laughed coldly. After that, the Blood Mountain sword behind him left its scabbard abruptly. Buzz. The Blood Mountain sword turned into a lofty mountain instantly and suppressed the bald-headed man, the first devil blood, right away. With the first devil blood suppressed, the whole universe became deathly silent temporarily. However, at the next moment, there was a huge uproar. The uproar naturally came from the Green Fire Palace. At that moment, a large number of experts in the Green Fire Palace were roaring hysterically, and quite a number of them were crying tears of joy. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. A great number of figures headed toward Zhen Wushuang at the same time. Old 3. Old 3. Wang Yuan and Su Ru looked at Zhen Wushuang with tears. Similarly, everyone else was extremely emotional. Dead. The 13 devil bloods are all dead. The 13 devils are finally dead. Haha, great, this is great. With the death of the 13 devil bloods, the devil church can be destroyed in a split second. With that, the Green Fire world will regain its peace. A huge number of experts spoke in succession, and their eyes, which were looking at Zhen Wushuang, were scorching hot and also filled with adoration. However, upon hearing that, Zhen Wushuang shook his head. This matter has not come to a complete end yet. Hey! Zhen Nantian and the rest of the people looked at Zhen Wushuang with surprise. The 13 devil bloods were already dead. Hence, wouldn't the devil church not have any room to struggle at all? Why had it not ended yet? Zhen Wushuang did not say anything. Instead, he turned his body slowly and continued heading toward the lofty devil city. In no time, he appeared at the void on top of the devil city, and he looked down with his icy-cold eyes. Even though you have witnessed your subordinates being killed by me one by one, you still remained indifferent. You are really able to bear with all of this. Zhen Wushuang's loud voice resounded across the whole universe. His voice spread in all directions and flooded each and every corner of the devil city. Upon hearing Zhen Wushuang's words, everyone from the Green Fire Palace opened their eyes wide. Weren't the strongest people in the devil church the 13 devil bloods? Could it be? Wang Yuan's heart beat fiercely. After Zhen Wushuang's voice reverberated across the area, the devil city below him was still extremely peaceful like before, and there were no changes. Haha, you are still trying to deceive yourself and all of us. Forget it. Since you are unwilling to come out, I shall drag you out. Zhen Wushuang laughed apathetically. Divine power then gathered in his hands, and he swung his palm out toward the bottom abruptly. Rumble. The palm expanded quickly in the void, and it became a big hand which could blot out the sky and the run instantly, covering the whole devil city as a result. The giant palm descended, and countless buildings of the huge devil city, as well as some cultivators of the devil church who still stayed in the devil city, were turned into fine powder. Frightening power spread in all directions madly, and in just an instant, the devil city disappeared. What replaced it was a huge and boundless pit. The pit was in complete darkness and bottomless as well. However, at the same time that the pit appeared, an extremely powerful aura which was similar to that of a gigantic dragon awakened slowly at the deepest part of the pit. Frightening aura flooded the whole area. In no time, the color of the universe changed, and the whole void was covered with a kind of dense crimson cloud instantly. After that, a tattered Taoist-robed stalwart old man rose slowly and appeared in front of Zhen Wushuang in the end. Upon seeing the person who had come, Zhen Wushuang's eyes shrank. As for the experts of the Green Fire Palace, all of them turned pale with fright. As expected, the devil church still had someone who was more powerful. I thought that my way of concealing myself was extremely superb, and I should be able to escape your soul's examination. How did you notice me? The stalwart Taoist-robed old man asked. It's simple. Firstly, it's the 13 devil bloods. Although they had become real gods, their auras were a lot weaker than other people's who were of a similar realm as them. Moreover, their foundations were extremely weak. If my guess is not wrong, they had entered the realm of real gods with the help of some great techniques of someone else. As for the abilities that they originally possessed, they should be so weak that it was depressing. In addition, the most important thing was the big formation of the devil city. While the big formation looked as though it was a defensive formation deployed to guard against anything unexpected, I could tell with a glance that it was a huge spirit-collecting great formation that collected the infinite amount of spiritual power of the universe. Moreover, The location that the spiritual power was gathered to was not outside the Devil City. Instead, it was at the deepest part of the Devil City. By combining the 2 points above, I came to the conclusion that a real expert definitely existed in the deepest part of the Devil City. As for the 13 Devil Bloods, they were merely puppets. Looking at it now, I was right. However, the only thing that I did not expect was that the expert who controlled the 13 Devil Bloods would actually be you. Dao Yuanzi. Murderous intent emerged in Jian Wushuang's eyes hastily. Chapter 1798, Dao Yuanzi. Looking at the evil-looking elderly in Taoist robe, Jian Wushuang's murderous intention increased to its maximum. Dao Yuanzi. This was a name that Jian Wushuang would never forget in his life. A long time ago, there was a war during the contest of son-in-law to marry Leng Rushuang. Back then, Emperor Leng, who had controlled Tang of the East, his greatest trump card was the teacher of the state, Dao Yuanzi. The war had involved many people and even King Jiyu Tong came forth personally. In the end, Dao Yuanzi had revealed his buck tooth and exposed his intention to refine all living things in Tang of the East in order to recover his power and made Tang of the East fall into an impasse. In the end, Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate to absorb the blood essence of King Luo Zhen ahead of time and had exploded a terrifying power to make use of River Mountain map. Then, he had managed to make a drastic change in the situation. During the battle, Dao Yuanzi should have been killed by Jian Wushuang. However, Dao Yuanzi was standing before him now and his power had reached a brand new level. Just like the 13 blood devils, the weakest was an eternal real god and even a few chaotic real gods. They were forcefully leveled up by Dao Yuanzi with great measures. Dao Yuanzi could make 13 real gods so casually and his power. Even Jian Wushuang didn't dare to belittle his power. Jian Wushuang, it has been so many years since we last met. The evil-looking elderly in Taoist robe, Dao Yuanzi, looked at Jian Wushuang with a malicious smile. You should have been killed by me back then. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. Killed? You only killed a blood devil clone that I substantiated, Dao Yuanzi sneered. Blood devil clone? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. Humph, speaking of blood devil clone, Dao Yuanzi's voice suddenly became cold. I was trapped in the battlefield nearby and my power was at its weakest. I couldn't recover with my effort alone, so I spent many years to accumulate and finally substantiated a blood devil clone that could roam around freely. Although the blood devil clone was weaker, as long as I set up a formation and absorbed massive life force, my original body's power could be recovered very quickly. At first, everything was going according to my plan, even the life-devouring formation was already set up. But who would have known that I'd run into you? You exterminated my blood devil clone and all my effort and accumulation over the years was in vain. Jian Wushuang, I really hated you to the bone back then. I was dying to slaughter you. Then, Dao Yuanzi's gaze let out boundless murderous intention but it quickly dispersed. Luckily, God was good to me. Not long after my blood devil clone was exterminated, the spiritual energy of the battlefield gradually increased and became more intense. With such spiritual energy, my recovery rate naturally increased tremendously. In no time, my original body finally could leave the battlefield. Haha, as long as my original body is not restricted, isn't it easy to recover my power? As for what happened next, you should pretty much know, Dao Yuanzi smiled. Jian Wushuang knew. Next, Dao Yuanzi had naturally come to Greenfire World and controlled the 13 blood devils to plunder a large amount of resources. Relying on the resources and the formations that gather souls, Dao Yuanzi had been trying to recover his power until Jian Wushuang came. You have been trapped in the battlefield and never recovered your power over so many years. If so, you should be an ancient expert that was left in the battlefield at the border of Greenfire World. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Ancient expert? You could say so, Dao Yuanzi admitted. Jian Wushuang nodded when he heard his reply. If so, everything made sense. Greenfire World was sealed off from the outside world. It was almost impossible for any ordinary people wanted to come in with normal method and not be noticed by experts from Greenfire Palace. In Jian Wushuang's knowledge, there were two that didn't belong to Greenfire World but Greenfire Palace didn't know. One was King Jiyu Tong. Second was Dao Yuanzi. King Jiyu Tong came to the battlefield via a gap in ancient mystery land. Jian Wushuang had already found out about that. As for Dao Yuanzi, Jian Wushuang had been curious until then. He finally found out that Dao Yuanzi had turned out to be an ancient expert. He wasn't from eternal chaotic world but from the surrounding vast, ancient battlefield. Of course, besides Dao Yuanzi, Green Fire World had many other secrets, such as the existence of his master. On top of that, there was Star Foggy Sea. Star Foggy Sea had been created by the master of Star Palace, but it had appeared in Green Fire World. And King of Venomous Worms. Jian Wushuang had once asked King of Venomous Worms about how he had come to Green Fire World, but King of Venomous Worms' reply was that he had come along with Star Foggy Sea. There was definitely a unique relationship between them. Jian Wushuang. Dao Yuanzi looked at Jian Wushuang. I never expected that your power would increase to such a level within 50,000 years. Even the 13 blood devils that I created, you could kill them so easily. It's a pity that you came back too late. Too late? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Hihi, if you had returned earlier, like 1,000 years earlier, I might have been fearful when I saw you. But now, Dao Yuanzi chuckled maliciously. Just as he stopped chuckling, rumble. The originally extremely fierce aura instantly increased once again. The speed of increment was terrifying fast. It immediately exceeded the range of the 13 blood devils and reached another level. And it continued to rise. Jian Wushuang focused his gaze. In his perception, Dao Yuanzi's aura had reached the top of chaotic real god and constantly rose to the extreme limit of a chaotic real god, and he broke through the barrier in the end and had reached the level of an almighty. Dao Yuanzi's aura had only slowed down at this stage. Sir God. Jian Wushuang looked cold. Dao Yuanzi's aura had already escalated to the level of an almighty, to the level of Sir God. However, if he was merely at the level of a Sir God, Jian Wushuang wouldn't be worried. It's a pity. Although Green Fire World's spiritual energy has reached a certain level, it only started to change not long ago and there wasn't a natural treasure. Without the assistance of natural treasure, my power could only recover to this level for now. However, it should be sufficient to kill you. Dao Yuanzi smiled faintly. He was confident in himself. Chapter 1799, Frightening Abilities Kill Me? With just a mere Sir God like you. Jian Wushuang looked at Dao Yuanzi with cold eyes. Sir God. Haha, the era that I was in did not have anything like Sir Gods. Instead, we only had the pure Sun realm and chaotic realm. As for my current realm, it is the chaotic realm, Dao Yuanzi laughed. Perhaps the chaotic realm is similar to the Sir God realm that you mentioned. However, even in similar realms, let me tell you how big the gap between the chaotic realm and a Sir God is. As soon as his words left his mouth, Dao Yuanzi shook slightly. After that, his body disappeared from the void. Hey! Jian Wushuang's expression turned grave and he spread his soul power completely. However, he was totally unable to find any traces of Dao Yuanzi. It was as though Dao Yuanzi had completely disappeared from the universe. As Jian Wushuang was looking for him with a frown, the void behind him broke open abruptly. After that, a stalwart figure came out from it and an old palm headed toward Jian Wushuang's throat with an infinite amount of people. As the palm headed to Jian Wushuang, the sounds of the wind that it generated caused Jian Wushuang's heart to skip a beat. Behind you. Jian Wushuang reacted immediately. As his eyes turned grave, countless tentacles which could blot out the sky and cover the earth came out from behind his back at once and headed to the other party. However, the moment the tentacles touched Dao Yuanzi's palm, many of them were smashed into pieces as though they were dry weeds and rotten wood that could be crushed and smashed easily respectively. After that, Dao Yuanzi clenched his fist abruptly. With that, the space broke apart completely and space cracks which stretched across more than 100,000 miles started to spread like a spiderweb. Gosh! Retreat quickly. It's too frightening. A large number of experts from the Green Fire Palace retreated hastily at once. All of their eyes were also filled with fear and shock. To them, the power that Dao Yuanzi had unleashed by clenching his fist was enough to kill all of them. However, fortunately, Zhen Wushuang had retreated to one side a long time ago and this big hand did not touch him at all. However, all of a sudden, the big hand which was clenched tightly into a fist loosened up fiercely. Swish, 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 swish. 5 shrill flittering lights were shot out from the 5 fingers of the big hand. They then pierced the void instantly and appeared in front of Zhen Wushuang. Zhen Wushuang's expression turned grave and the Blood Mountain sword behind him left its scabbard at once. Reincarnation Sword Principle, first move. Swish. The sword light which contained a great amount of reincarnation power whistled and tore the void into pieces. At the same time, it repelled the 5 flittering lights which had been shot over. Oh! Dao Yuanzi raised his eyebrows and glanced at Zhen Wushuang with surprise. Not bad. You are merely someone in the pure sun realm. However, in terms of the power of your divine power, it is able to rival that of a middle-stage chaotic realm. Even I am unable to compete against such a kind of power now. However, it's a pity that it's useless. Dao Yuanzi laughed nonchalantly. While standing at his original position, he swung his palm toward Zhen Wushuang again. In no time, Zhen Wushuang felt as if the space-time around him were completely sealed off and his body was under great obstructions and attacks. Such a feeling was similar to that of the moon-picking skill, the strongest secret skill of the ancient god that he could unleash. However, the only difference was that it was his opponent who had unleashed such a kind of move to attack him. Rumble. The void was suppressed to the point that it broke into pieces. A giant hand then appeared out of thin air and grabbed Zhen Wushuang's body. With that, an enormous amount of power burst forth as if it wanted to crush Zhen Wushuang's body. Zhen Wushuang gave a cold snort and the ancient god power in his body emerged hastily. At that moment, his body expanded abruptly. With his crazy divine power, the big hand which grabbed Zhen Wushuang tightly also started to shake madly. Scram! With a furious cry, Zhen Wushuang finally struggled free of the big hand. Moreover, the current him had already turned into a dark golden ancient god that was 100 feet tall. There were also 6 stars in the space between his eyebrows and he was filled with murderous intent. An ancient god? Haha, it is merely some rare bloodline of the ancient clan, Dao Yuanzi laughed disdainfully. 50,000 years ago, during that shocking battle in Tang of the East, his Crimson God clone had fought with King Jiyu Tong, who was also seriously injured and was in a weak state. Back then, he could tell that the ancient god's techniques were nothing much. Moreover, he was unwilling to expose the background of his real body and himself. As such, he had pretended to look extremely fearful of a 7-star ancient god. However, in actual fact, he did not care about a mere 7-star ancient god at all. Die! A strict cry resounded in the horizon and a giant finger which looked as though it came from the past descended. The finger contained a tremendous amount of ancient god power and it was the ancient god's 6th finger, the sun corrosion finger, which Zhen Wushuang had unleashed with his full power. Break! Dao Yuanzi merely uttered one word and with a random swing of his big hand, Zhen Wushuang's ancient god's 6th finger was dissipated immediately. How is this possible? Zhen Wushuang was extremely terrified. It should be known that he had already achieved stage 3 ultimate real god. Hence, his divine power and body were at the level of an emperor god. In other words, they were at the level of middle stage chaotic realm which Dao Yuanzi had mentioned. As for Dao Yuanzi, he was currently at the level of a Sir God, early stage chaotic realm. Hence, their powers were one level apart from one another. However, Dao Yuanzi had actually dispelled the attack that he had unleashed easily. On the contrary, Zhen Wushuang found it very difficult to deal with the moves that Dao Yuanzi unleashed. Zhen Wushuang, I have already said that you have returned too late, Dao Yuanzi sneered. If I had still not regained the abilities of the chaotic realm and I were still in the pure sun realm, you might still be able to kill me with your abilities. However, now, you had better accept your death obediently. Me. Zhen Wushuang had never talked even once and he only gave a cold snort. After that, 2 brilliant rays of golden light beside him were shot out abruptly. The 2 rays of golden light were unusually fast. With one on the left and one on the right, they had already appeared in front of Dao Yuanzi. This is the Hongjun Golden Sword? Dao Yuanzi revealed a surprised expression. However, he shook his head after that. They are merely imitations of the Hongjun golden swords. Moreover, you are only able to control 2 of them. Hence, what use is there? Dao Yuanzi laughed with contempt, and 2 shrill lights burst forth from his fingertips. In an instant, the 2 Hongjun golden swords were sent flying for thousands of miles. I shall stop playing with you. Dao Yuanzi lost his patience, and a powerful power gathered slowly in his hands at once. After that, his finger pointed toward Jian Wushuang's position. When the finger was pointed out, the universe was destroyed. Jian Wushuang could see clearly that a pitch-black luster was heading toward his chest. The power that the pitch-black luster contained had caused even Jian Wushuang to be terrified. Ancient God's unique skill, 8 divine mountains. Bang, 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 bang. All of a sudden, 8 lofty, golden divine mountains descended, and they became 8 obstacles which stood in front of Jian Wushuang. However, the pitch-black luster pierced through the 8 divine mountains as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. After that, it struck Jian Wushuang's body. Jian Wushuang's body retreated tens of thousands of miles at once, and it was only after a long time that he regained his posture. Moreover, there was a clear white spot on his chest. Chapter 1800. Ancient expert. The power of 1 finger could shatter the 8 divine mountain that Jian Wushuang had performed with all his strength and continue to hit Jian Wushuang's body. Its impact made Jian Wushuang retreat 10,000 miles away. The power of the finger could be well imagined. You didn't die. Dao Yuanzi looked at Jian Wushuang with interest. It seems like not only did your divine power reach middle stage chaotic realm, but the same also goes to your divine body. Jian Wushuang's face grew grave. Dao Yuanzi was only a Sir God, how could he be so powerful? Jian Wushuang grew solemn. It was true. Dao Yuanzi was too powerful. He was definitely the scariest Sir God that Jian Wushuang had ever seen, far stronger than any Sir Gods he met before. Even Emperor God Shui Go and Emperor God Tian Xiao didn't strike Jian Wushuang with such ferocity. Jian Wushuang, don't belittle your opponent. Don't forget that he is an expert from ancient times. King of Venomous Worm's voice suddenly rang in Jian Wushuang's head. Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat. Yes, an expert from ancient times. The powerful and prosperous ancient times is beyond comparison to the eternal chaotic world that you're in now. Back in ancient times, there were many experts and countless geniuses. With the number of experts, they naturally created many secret skills, and they were all ridiculously strong. The person named Dao Yuanzi in front of you should be far beyond an emperor god when he is at his peak. He could only be stronger, not weaker when compared with a great emperor. Although his power has only recovered to the level of Sir God, the techniques that he has, such as secret skills, unique skills, and comprehension of doctrines, are definitely at the great emperor level or even higher. With this factor alone, his overall power will be much stronger than ordinary emperor gods. Hence, don't belittle him and don't compete with him in terms of close combat skills. You won't be his match. The best way is to utilize all your trump cards and suppress him with power and strength, King of Venomous Worms said. Suppress with power and strength. I happen to share the same idea. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. Whatever King of Venomous Worms said, he thought about too. An expert from ancient times, even if he could only give play to the strength of Sir God level, his fighting power was definitely not measured according to an ordinary Sir God level. Then, Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate but flipped his palm and a scroll painting appeared in his hand. As Jian Wushuang threw the scroll painting into the void, there was a beautiful and boundless scroll painting world that appeared in the sky above. A boundless aura spread down from the scroll painting world. Dao Yuanzi, you should be very familiar with this scene, right? Jian Wushuang said. Of course I am. Over 50,000 years ago, you used this treasure to kill my blood devil clone. Back then, I thought your treasure would be just an ordinary chaos divine treasure. But from what it seems, it isn't that simple. Dao Yuanzi squinted his eyes as he looked at the sky above. He could feel a supreme aura from the scroll painting world. Humph, then you should feel the power of this treasure again today. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold. As he spoke, There was a lofty continent that extended from the scroll-painting world. 9 province second seal, hack the earth, suddenly descended. This aura, Dao Yuanzi's face grew grave. Just as the lofty continent descended, he felt a familiar aura. The aura dated back to many years ago during the ancient war, when he had felt a similar aura. I remember now. This treasure is River Mountain Map. It's 7-star Black Sect's River Mountain Map. Your 7-star Black Sect's man? Dao Yuanzi looked at Zhen Wushuang with a horrified look. 7-star Black Sect was the main participant in the ancient war. They were also one of the overlords in ancient times. An ancient and powerful sect, even Dao Yuanzi was fearful. But suddenly, Dao Yuanzi shook his head vigorously. No way, it's impossible that you're 7-star Black Sect's man. 7-star Black Sect should have been destroyed in the ancient war back then. Even if they survived by sheer luck. To be able to survive the war back then, one's power would definitely be above your level. You must have gotten this River Mountain Map by luck, it is definitely so. Dao Yuanzi instantly believed in his judgment. In the sky, the lofty continent descended and pressed on him. He smirked coldly, hehe, although the treasure is great, you must be able to give full play to its power. Watch me as I withstand your move and kill you next to get this treasure. Dao Yuanzi chuckled coldly and there was a thick, crimson fog that soared up from his body. At the same time, he lifted his hands and moved his fingers as though he was playing a string musical instrument. Wow! 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 There was a total of 10 crimson lights that burst out. It almost hit the lofty continent that was descending instantly. The bottom of the lofty continent was immediately pierced and there were 10 holes. Then, the entire continent started to collapse. Hack the earth that Zhen Wushuang had performed with all his strength was shattered by Dao Yuanzi easily. Hee, 7-star Black Sect's River Mountain Map, this treasure is wasted in your hands, Dao Yuanzi sneered. Zhen Wushuang wasn't surprised by what happened. His divine power revolved madly and continued to flow into the sky above. Dao Yuanzi, isn't it too early to celebrate? A loud roar reverberated in the universe. Then, Zhen Wushuang slapped a few palm prints in the sky above. Rumble. The universe shook and a brand new continent descended. The continent was much bigger than the one before and the power was obviously much stronger. 9 province seal, the third move, Yang province as the seal, was called Overwhelm the Rain. Ever since Zhen Wushuang had broken through and become a third-stage ultimate real god, his overall power had increased tremendously and his divine power had transformed completely. Hence, he finally got to perform this move. In terms of power, Overwhelm the Rain was a few times stronger than the second move, Hack the Earth. At that moment, Overwhelm the Rain descended and the billowing pressure pressed the void. The entire void started shaking vigorously. Looking at the scene, Dao Yuanzi was surprised but he wasn't concerned. Much stronger than the earlier move, but that's it. Don't be in a hurry, Zhen Wushuang lifted the corners of his lips. As he spoke, he suddenly patted in between his eyebrows with his right hand. Bang! Bang! 2 ancient god stars broke apart instantly. Secret skill of ancient god, star destruction skill. An ancient god would use this skill in the last critical moment when he went all out. It was also one of Zhen Wushuang's trump cards. The more ancient god stars an ancient god broke, the more his power would increase in a short time. However, it would be more difficult to recover after as well. Chapter 1801. Give me a reason for the battle in the Buddhist demon sea. Back then, Zhen Wushuang had used all his tricks and also destroyed all his 6 stars. In the end, even with the King of Venomous Worms helping him to recover with its full power, he had still used a total of close to 8,000 years to recover completely. This time around, although only 2 stars were destroyed, his abilities as a whole still increased greatly at once. The moment 2 of his ancient god stars were destroyed, Zhen Wushuang's ancient god power skyrocketed. As for the lofty continent which was descending with a rumbling sound, its power also rose greatly. Upon seeing the changes in the lofty continent, even Dao Yuanzi's expression changed slightly. Looks like he has prepared to give his all. However, this is still not enough, Dao Yuanzi laughed indifferently. Not enough. Then how about this? Jian Wushuang's voice turned heavy and an unusual power appeared from his body instantly. This power was the star power. Jian Wushuang's strongest trump card, the secret skill of Star Palace, was unleashed abruptly at this moment. Boom! The universe shook. With the addition of the star power, the power of the lofty continent, which was already extremely powerful to begin with, rose 100 times instantly. The third move of the 9-province seal with 100 times more power. It was Jian Wushuang's strongest attack. For this attack, Jian Wushuang even had the confidence that it could kill a top emperor god. As for Dao Yuanzi, who had always been extremely calm and collected, when he realized that the power of the lofty continent above him had increased by 100 times, his expression finally changed. The secret skill of 7-star. This is the secret skill of 7-star of the 7-star Black Sec. How is this possible? Dao Yuanzi was gasping with astonishment. He had absolute confidence in his own abilities. Even if Jian Wushuang were stronger than him in terms of power, he did not care at all. Even when Jian Wushuang took out the mountain river map and unleashed a powerful killing move, he could still be unconcerned as he could block it easily. For example, he had blocked the second move of the 9-province seal easily. As for the third move, it was still within his abilities to block it. However, if the power of such a move were to rise by 100 times, it would be completely different. He was no doubt an expert from the ancient past. However, in the end, his abilities had not recovered yet and there was a huge gap between them in terms of power. As for Jian Wushuang's current attack, it relied completely on power to suppress him. Moreover, such a power had also caused Dao Yuanzi to be terrified. I will be unable to guard against this attack. Dao Yuanzi had already had such a thought. Jian Wushuang, please stop quickly. We shall call it a day here and from now on, we shall mind our own business. I will not kill anyone from your green fire world again. Dao Yuanzi's voice, which was obviously filled with anxiety, resounded across the universe. What a joke! Jian Wushuang was filled with murderous intent. If you were to really force me, after my abilities have recovered, I will definitely turn all the living beings in your green fire world into power. Dao Yuanzi continued shouting. Page, why not say that after you survive this attack of mine? Jian Wushuang ignored him. Damn it! Dao Yuanzi's expression changed greatly. As the lofty continent got closer and closer, he became even more frightened. Moreover, he had a strong feeling of death due to the incoming danger. Devil's heavenly hand. With cracking sounds, a scarlet giant arm appeared from Dao Yuanzi's body. The arm contained an enormous amount of demonic energy and it attacked with lightning speed with the intention of smashing the lofty continent which was descending into pieces. Bam! With a loud sound, the two attacks finally clashed head-on. As soon as they clashed, a tremendous divine power storm was generated and it covered a range of 1,000,000 miles. Vast black holes then appeared continuously and they destroyed everything in the surrounding mercilessly. As for the ground below them, it caved in completely. It was the end of the world. In a void which was extremely far away from the battlefield, many experts from the Green Fire Palace were looking at the scene in front of them with an unprecedented amount of shock. The scene in front of them was really too frightening. Within the range of 1,000,000 miles, a huge amount of divine power was jumping about madly. The large number of experts from the Green Fire Palace all felt that if they were to step into the 1,000,000 miles range, they would be sliced by the boundless divine power storm into pieces. Such a shocking battle had completely exceeded the standards that the Green Fire world could achieve. Is Dao Yuanzi dead? Countless people were murmuring and they were all waiting for the results. After a long time, the divine power storm which covered a range of 1,000,000 miles finally subsided and everything dissipated. On the battlefield, there were still two figures standing. However, the only difference was that one of the figures still stood in the void while the other one had fallen into the underground and he was barely standing deep inside the underground. Damn it! Dao Yuanzi's expression was ghastly pale and his body was filled with blood. He was in an extremely miserable state. At that moment, he was gritting his teeth tightly and his body was also shaking madly. Swoosh! The shadow in the void floated over slowly. Jian Wushuang's ice-cold eyes were staring at Dao Yuanzi. Under such a kind of attack, you are still able to remain alive. As expected of an expert from the ancient past, Zhen Wushuang's voice was ice-cold. Damn it. If not for me being seriously injured to begin with and the fact that I had only recovered to early-stage chaotic realm, do you think that you would be able to defeat me? Dao Yuanzi shouted furiously. Indeed, if you were at your peak where your abilities had recovered to the middle-stage chaotic realm that you mentioned, in a situation where our powers are equally powerful, I would definitely be unable to do anything against you even if I were to use all my trump cards. However, it's a pity as you will not have that opportunity. Zhen Wushuang's eyes were cold. He then moved his legs and moved toward Dao Yuanzi slowly. A shocking murderous intent also appeared from Zhen Wushuang's body slowly. Upon seeing that, Dao Yuanzi's eyes shrank violently. At the same time, he was also terrified. During the clash moments ago, he was seriously injured by Zhen Wushuang again. With him getting more injuries on top of his previous injuries, at that time, he was totally unable to unleash any more fighting capabilities. As for Zhen Wushuang, although he had used his trump card, he still had an abundance of fighting capabilities. Hence, at that moment, it would be easy for Zhen Wushuang to kill him. Zhen Wushuang, let's have a discussion, Dao Yuanzi said immediately. Zhen Wushuang did not stop moving and his ice-cold voice spread to him, are you begging me to spare your life? Haha, give me a reason to not kill you. A reason? Dao Yuanzi was stunned. After thinking quickly, he said right away, I am willing to surrender to you. In the future, I will follow all your orders. No matter what you want me to do, I will not say no to you. If you are not confident in me, you can leave a seal or a soul stamp in my body. In the future, I will absolutely not dare to go against you again. Zhen Wushuang's face was indifferent and he did not stop walking. Zhen Wushuang, you should know that when I was at my peak, I reached the limit of the chaotic realm. If my abilities were to recover completely, I could definitely be of great help to you. In addition, I could even help you to govern this era so that you will be able to become this era's strongest expert, Dao Yuanzi said pressingly. Haha, even though you have stayed in the battlefield nearby for so many years and have also used so much energy as well as time to treat your wounds, you have merely recovered to early-stage chaotic realm. Thus, who knows how long you will need to recover to your peak. If a day comes when your abilities have really recovered, then, even without you, I would still be able to stand at the peak of this era. Zhen Wushuang sneered and his murderous intent did not decrease in the slightest. Chapter 1802, Legend Dao Yuanzi saw that Zhen Wushuang remained aloof and he felt terrified. He quickly thought in his head. Very soon, he spoke again, Zhen Wushuang, I know that you carry the ancient god bloodline but ancient gods actually only possesses a very thin bloodline of ancient tribe. I carry blood essence of a true ancient tribe expert. Besides, I know that there is an ancient tribe expert's dead body in the battlefield nearby. It contains the bloodline inheritance of an ancient tribe. I can bring you there. Ancient tribe? Bloodline inheritance. Zhen Wushuang was curious. Humph. What ancient tribe? I have never heard of it before. I think you just made this up and your goal is most likely for me to die at an extremely dangerous place. Do you think him stupid enough to listen to you? Zhen Wushuang let his murderous intention run wild as he raised Blood Mountain's sword in his hand. No. I'm telling you the truth. Dao Yuanzi screamed his lungs out but Zhen Wushuang didn't care and slashed with his sword. In the split moment of life and death, Dao Yuanzi suddenly roared, Zhen Wushuang, do you want your brother to come back to life? Vroom. The sword that already had slashed down suddenly stopped in the mid-air. The blade was less than half a meter away from Dao Yuanzi's head. Zhen Wushuang looked solemn as he stared at Dao Yuanzi. What did you say just now? Come back to life. Dao Yuanzi continued, you are furious because one of your brothers and the other two close relatives died, right? Yes, they died but they could come back to life. There's a legend that says that on the peak of the universe, there's a super-existence on equal footing with Heaven Wei. They could reverse space-time and bring the dead cultivators back to life. Legend? Zhen Wushuang's gaze turned cold. Are you fooling me? No, I'm not fooling you. Back in my time, there was really this legend. If there's a legend, There must really be such a super existence. How could such a super existence pass away so easily? This super existence might be in one of the corners in the battlefield, but in a deep sleep, or in a unique condition. Such as 7-star Black Sect. They are an example of a super sect. Among the top experts in this sect, there might be one who has already reached such a level. An existence of such level is far too ancient. Even if you were to run into them, you might not know them. However, I'm different. Although I was an entity back during the war, I was in charge of gathering information. I know many super experts that were involved in the war and I can recognize them for you. Then, when you wander on the battlefield, it could save you a lot of trouble. I know a lot of information about the war back then, Dao Yuanzi continued. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes after listening to Dao Yuanzi. King of Venomous Worms, what do you think? Jian Wushuang asked for King of Venomous Worms' opinion. Reverse space-time? Bring dead experts back to life? Hehe, I have never heard of such a technique, this is most likely a lie. Even if it was true, the chances are slim, King of Venomous Worms said. However, there's something Dao Yuanzi said that is right. He is an ancient expert and he is knowledgeable. Hence, he must know quite a bit of secret about ancient times. As for experts from ancient times, he isn't wrong either. The surrounding ancient battlefield is a great treasure. Such a huge treasure, you can't just let it sit in vain. You definitely must wander around. With Dao Yuanzi around, he could save you some unnecessary trouble and danger. Of course, only with the prerequisite that you could control him. If you can't control him, it would be a disaster to you and to the entire Greenfire world. Jian Wushuang was deep in thought. After a short while, Jian Wushuang made up his mind. Dao Yuanzi, do not resist. Jian Wushuang swept out his soul power over Dao Yuanzi. Dao Yuanzi wasn't angry but thrilled. He naturally didn't resist. Very soon, Jian Wushuang left a soul stamp on Dao Yuanzi's soul fire. With the soul stamp, Jian Wushuang controlled Dao Yuanzi's life and death. Greetings, Master. Dao Yuanzi bowed politely at Jian Wushuang. Master, huh? Jian Wushuang smirked coldly. Then, Blood Mountain's sword turned into a lofty mountain. Master, what do you mean? Dao Yuanzi was shocked but he couldn't resist. He was suppressed by the lofty mountain. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. Dao Yuanzi thought I was stupid. He is an expert from ancient times. He could at least be a great emperor's match, or even beyond. Such an expert is powerful. He didn't have a choice so he yields to me for now. But once he recovers his power gradually, he might be able to remove the soul stamp. By then, forget about controlling him, my life might be in danger too. Jian Wushuang wasn't sure if Dao Yuanzi had the power to remove his soul stamp but he didn't dare to take the risk. Hence, even if Dao Yuanzi yielded to him, he would continue to suppress him. Unless there was a day when he could remove Dao Yuanzi's consciousness and soul control him. Just like Lei Chao back then. Lei Chao had been soul-controlled and he was pretty much dead. He listened to the instructions of the controller completely. Only then, Jian Wushuang would be at ease. At the same time, he would consider himself to have taken revenge for Yang Zishuan, Emperor Tang and Emperor Xiao. However, Dao Yuanzi was an ancient expert after all. His soul was extremely strong. It would be impossible if Jian Wushuang wanted to soul control him in a short time. Before I am able to soul control you, you'd better stay in Blood Mountain Sword. As for your power, humph, don't even think about it, Jian Wushuang sneered. He definitely wouldn't give Dao Yuanzi any chance to recover his power. Even if one day he were to be in danger, he would activate the soul stamp at the critical moment to kill Dao Yuanzi. Phew. A cold breeze howled. The entire universe went quiet. After Jian Wushuang had suppressed Dao Yuanzi, he turned and walked to people from Greenfire Palace. Everyone from Greenfire Palace was extremely excited. Their excitement was not only because Devil Church had been destroyed completely, but also because of Jian Wushuang's power. Too strong. From everyone's view, Jian Wushuang was too powerful. Jian Wushuang was Greenfire Palace's man and he was truly a mainstay of Greenfire World. With the existence of such a superb expert, Green Fire World was lucky. Chapter 1803, Reformation. The Devil Church was destroyed. In just a few days' time, after the 13 Devil Bloods were massacred by Zhen Wushuang and the first Devil Blood as well as Dao Yuanzi were suppressed in the Blood Mountain Sword in succession, the Devil Church was destroyed completely. There was no room for them to struggle. After getting to know about this piece of news, the experts of all the powerhouses in the Green Fire World rejoiced at once. At the same time, a name which had long become a legend spread within the Green Fire World again. This name was Zhen Wushuang. It was Zhen Wushuang who had disappeared after becoming a legend 50,000 years ago. At that time, he had returned again. As soon as he returned, he destroyed the Devil Church with lightning speed. Within the vast palace in the Green Fire Palace, many higher-ups of the Green Fire Palace had gathered. Moreover, the person sitting at the position at the front, which was also the most central position, was Zhen Wushuang. Moreover, even his throne was bigger than those of other people. With regards to that, no one present had anything to say. At the throne, Zhen Wushuang took out a Chen Kuan ring with a flip of his palm. This Chen Kuan ring contains some items that I have arranged, and it contains many guides starting from Tao Master to Heaven Master, Universe God, and to Real God. These guides are very detailed. As long as the conditions are met, by following the guides, it will not be an issue for all of you to make a breakthrough to become a universe god or a real god. Apart from that, there are quite a number of training resources which include many cultivation techniques, secret skills, and rare books. In addition, there are some treasures which are of great help to the comprehension of doctrines and unique skills. Father, I will give this Chen Kuan ring to you. In the future, please lead everyone slowly and hand down your knowledge. Zhen Wushuang handed the Chen Kuan ring over to Zhen Nantian. Zhen Nantian took the Chen Kuan ring and his eyes glowed brilliantly. As for everyone in the area, all of them revealed a delightful expression. It should be known that in the current Green Fire World, in terms of training environment, it was not inferior to that of the 10 sanctuaries in the eternal chaotic world. In such a good environment, the Green Fire World would be able to produce many genius experts continuously. Moreover, the Green Fire World was beside a huge ancient battlefield which contained an infinite amount of opportunities. Hence, they could explore it. The environment and opportunities were already present. However, if the Green Fire World really wanted to grow, they still lacked one component, and that was guidance. In the Green Fire World, apart from Zhen Wushuang, no other experts were born. Currently, the strongest person was Zhen Nantian, who was merely a universe god of the second heaven. Moreover, it was extremely difficult for him to reach such a stage. After all, he had relied on himself to explore blindly. However, if there were a complete guide, then it would be completely different. With the combination of such a good environment as well as opportunities, the Green Fire World's speed of growth from then on would definitely be extremely shocking. It's a pity that I did not know that the Green Fire World had already undergone such a huge change. Hence, I did not prepare enough. If not, during my trip of returning here, I could still think of ways to get even more comprehensive guides. Moreover, it will not just be from universe gods to real gods. There will also be guides for void real gods to eternal real gods and then chaotic real gods. Furthermore, I might be able to obtain guides to become an almighty. On top of that, I might also be able to think of some ways to get many training resources that can assist all of you. Zhen Wushuang sighed lightly. With his current abilities, if he were willing to, it would be easy for him to create a big powerhouse easily by force. In addition, obtaining some complete guides to training as well as some training resources that acted as support or some places of opportunities that would be of great help to some geniuses would be possible as well. However, he did not prepare for it previously. However, there's no rush. After all, the Green Fire World has only changed for not too long. These guides that I have left behind should be enough for the experts of the Green Fire World to make a breakthrough to become real gods successfully. As for the guides and resources after becoming a real god, after a real god has been born for real in the Green Fire World, I will return to the lineage of Star and get some of them from Hall Master Yuan. Zhen Wushuang laughed. As for now, the Devil Church has been destroyed. Moreover, There are also no threats from experts from the powerhouses outside. As such, my green fire world will definitely enter a stage of high-speed growth. However, to allow them to grow, there definitely needs to be some form of competition. Hence, the Green Fire Palace, there must be some proper changes to it. Zhen Wushuang tapped his chair and his eyes looked down. The large number of experts present looked at one another. All of them roughly understood Zhen Wushuang's intentions. Presently, the Green Fire world was completely different from the past. Zhen Wushuang had seen the huge potential that the Green Fire world had. To Zhen Wushuang, if the Green Fire world were to grow up completely, it might even have an opportunity to be a new cultivation sanctuary that was similar to the 10 sanctuaries of the eternal chaotic world. Of course, before that, there was still a long way to go. Moreover, if a powerhouse or a sect wished to grow, there should be some form of competition. This kind of competition was not just a competition against the outside. There must also be competition within them as well. Naturally, it was the same for the Green Fire world. Zhen Wushuang's intentions were to split up the power within the Green Fire Palace to become either many sects or powerhouses, and that they would compete against one another for resources. It was only with this that the Green Fire world would be able to grow at an even faster speed. Of course, no matter how great the competition for resources was, there would always be a premise, and that was the Green Fire world having absolute authority. Just like the Sanctuary Alliance, on normal days, the Sanctuary Alliance would not care about the competition between its powerhouses. Even if a big powerhouse were to destroy another big powerhouse, they would not care about it. However, at the critical moment, with a word from the great emperors who were the higher-ups of the Sanctuary Alliance, all the powerhouses in the Sanctuary Alliance would unite as one to fight for the Sanctuary Alliance. What Zhen Wushuang wanted was that he would transform the Green Fire Palace into a huge monster like the Sanctuary Alliance, so that the Green Fire world would achieve the greatest level of improvement and development over the long years. By using one word to summarize everything, he wanted reformations. Father, Boss Wang Yuan, I shall leave this matter to the both of you, Zhen Wushuang said. No problem, Wang Yuan laughed. Zhen Nantian also nodded his head. Before Zhen Wushuang returned, Wang Yuan and Zhen Nantian had always been the two people with the highest position in the Green Fire Palace. One of them was the #1 alchemist, and his elixirs had aided the breakthrough of many experts of the Green Fire Palace. As for the other person, he was the only universe god of the second heaven. With the two of them taking action, no one in the Green Fire Palace or even the whole Green Fire world would dare to go against them. In no time, the greatest scale of reformation in the Green Fire Palace and the whole Green Fire world began. Zhen Wushuang had already stopped concerning himself with the reformation. He believed that his father and Wang Yuan would be able to take care of it well. On that very day, under the guidance of Palace Master Yun, Zhen Wushuang came to a special space. In a dark void that was out of cultivation, there were only Zhen Wushuang and Palace Master Yun. However, the front of the void that was out of cultivation was dusky. At the same time, there were also many light pearls. For the light pearls, every one of them was extremely important. It was because of the light pearls being joined together and that they were combined in a special way that they were able to cover the whole ancient battlefield. Moreover, they had also spread all the way to the space-time storm nearby, which was a giant formation. And the big formation was the Green Fire world's greatest power. Chapter 1804, Whose Head Mr. Wushuang? The formation is controlled by these formation pearls. 50,000 years ago, when the formation first blended in the space-time storm, the power wasn't strong. But as time went by, the formation became more and more ferocious. Now, it has even become the biggest reliance of Green Fire World and also Green Fire World's most lethal tactic, Palace Master Yuan said. Palace Master Yun had been in charge of controlling many formations in Green Fire Palace before the war with Jin Kingdom 50,000 years ago. Until then, Palace Master Yun also knew the changes that the huge formation brought to the entire battlefield the best. Zhen Wushuang raised his eyebrows when he heard what Palace Master Yun said. Zhen Wushuang could understand when he had mentioned the biggest reliance, but how had it become a lethal tactic? Mister, you can move your consciousness into the formation pearl to control the formation, Palace Master Yun said. Jian Wushuang nodded and followed Palace Master Yun's instruction. He spread his soul power and moved them into the formation pearls. With the formation pearls, Jian Wushuang quickly took control of the entire formation. The moment he controlled the formation, his heart quivered. Space-time storm. This formation could move about the strength of space-time storm? Jian Wushuang looked surprised. Including the space-time storm around the battlefield, the space-time storm definitely had the power to destroy everything. Previously, Jian Wushuang had thought his master Xian Yi had only created the formation to blend into the space-time storm in order to stop outsiders from enter with the aid of space-time storm. Jian Wushuang had always thought it was so. But then, Jian Wushuang had realized that the formation had already almost taken full control of the space-time storm. With the formation, he could move about the strength of space-time storm. Just how terrifying was the power? Lethal tactic. No wonder it could be referred to as a lethal tactic. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands together. He also understood why Devil Church had had scruples with Green Fire Palace back then. They were worried about the formation. It's a pity that the space-time storm has balanced. Once we use the formation to move about the strength of the space-time storm, it will lose balance entirely. By then, it will destroy heaven and death, which means the end of the world. Unless there's a day where the formation can gain full control of the space-time storm completely. However, I wonder how long it will take until there's that level of control, Jian Wushuang muttered. Palace Master Yun by the side also said, the formation has yet to evolve to its maximum, it still has space for improvement. But before that, unless we intend to meet death together with our enemy, we won't use this lethal tactic. Millimeter, Jian Wushuang nodded. Oh yeah, Mr. Wushuang, as you are controlling the formation, you can look at the battlefield via the formation. Take a closer look, you might be surprised. Palace Master Yun smiled mysteriously. Surprised? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He had been wandering in eternal chaotic world for so long, and he was even listed on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. He had even watched a battle between ancient experts. What else could surprise him? With curiosity, Jian Wushuang started looking around. With the formation, Jian Wushuang could immediately see the entire ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield was vast, boundless. Jian Wushuang reckoned that even if he were to plunge through the battlefield at his full speed without hindrance, he wouldn't be able to make a lap at the border of the battlefield without a few thousand years. In a huge ancient battlefield, there was a ruin with countless bumps and hollows that was filled with ancient yet mysterious aura. It was impressive. The location of Green Fire World is there. Jian Wushuang looked at the corner of a battlefield. When he looked in the direction of it, his facial expression quickly changed. He was originally calm, but he suddenly became shocked and then dumbstruck. In the end, he looked in disbelief. How is this possible? Impossible. Jian Wushuang let out a low bellow. He was an expert on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, an existence who possessed the fighting power of an emperor god, and he was knowledgeable and experienced. But then, he couldn't conceal his astonishment. Not only him, but also King of Venomous Worms, who was in harmony with his mind and blood. He was also dumbfounded. Looking at Jian Wushuang's expression, Palace Master Yun smiled faintly and he wasn't surprised. In actual fact, anyone who saw the scene in the middle of the battlefield, or maybe the thing, would be astonished. Unbelievable. Jian Wushuang muttered as he gasped a breath of cold air. He saw the entire ancient battlefield through the huge formation. At the same time, he saw Green Fire World that was right in the middle of the ancient battlefield, but Jian Wushuang also saw that there was an unbelievably huge head there clearly. Yes, it was a head. Chapter 1805. The secrets of the ancient times. Eyebrows were the concentration point of the practitioner's soul and power. For the ancient god clan, for example, their ancient god stars were gathered in the eyebrows. And Jian Wushuang thought it was absolutely not a coincidence that the Green Fire World was just in between. Maybe the Green Fire World was not born from this ancient battlefield, but from this head. Jian Wushuang thought. Jian Wushuang shook his head, considering his own speculation to be crazy. After a more detailed understanding of the surrounding array, Jian Wushuang turned and left. In a secret room, Jian Wushuang sat alone, flanked by Qin Yu and He Xin. Jian Wushuang took the Blood Mountain sword out. Dao Yuanzi. Jian Wushuang's voice spread into the sword. In the sword, two people were suppressed. The two men were Dao Yuanzi and the first Sir God. What about other people who had been suppressed by the sword before? They had been killed by Jian Wushuang after being tortured. My devil, please figure out some ways to let us escape from this. The first Sir God cried and screamed. He thought Dao Yuanzi would save him when he was stuck in the sword. Unexpectedly, in the end, even Dao Yuanzi had been suppressed. Shut up, or I will kill you. Dao Yuanzi glanced at the first Sir God indifferently. Actually, Dao Yuanzi didn't care whether his subordinate would survive or not. But Dao Yuanzi did want to escape from here, but he didn't have that capability. Now, his own life was at the mercy of Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was so vigilant. He left a soul stamp on my body and I couldn't escape his control anyway. He still keeps me here and won't allow me to go out. Yuan Daozi complained. As Jian Wushuang had guessed, Dao Yuanzi could not really surrender to him. The reason why Dao Yuanzi had allowed Jian Wushuang to leave the stamp was that there was no other way for him to survive. Dao Yuanzi was an ancient expert with many resources. As long as his strength was restored, he could easily revoke Jian Wushuang's soul stamp so that he could get rid of Jian Wushuang's control and do whatever he wanted. Unfortunately, his tricks didn't work. Jian Wushuang knew his plan and didn't let him go. Dao Yuanzi. Hearing Jian Wushuang's voice, Dao Yuanzi was surprised but immediately responded with a humble and respectful attitude. Is there anything I can do to serve you, my lord? I have something to ask you. You are a strong talent of ancient times, so you must know a lot about the battles of the ancient time. I will answer with everything I know. Dao Yuanzi responded. Jian Wushuang sneered and thought, Dao Yuanzi is really good at flattering. Before he had been suppressed, he had been arrogant without even noticing Jian Wushuang. But now, he had bent down to Jian Wushuang. Don't expect me to release you. Jian Wushuang thought in private, but he didn't show it to Dao Yuanzi. He asked Dao Yuanzi, tell me, what was the cause of the war? This is the question that had haunted Jian Wushuang for a long time. That was a war so destructible that all things, including the most powerful era, had collapsed. What was the reason for that? And Jian Wushuang wanted to know whether it had something to do with his master. However, Dao Yuanzi shook his head and said, sorry, my lord. The war broke out suddenly and so quickly that many people, including the strong talents, had no idea of what happened, and I only had a tiny role in that battle. So I really don't know the answer. Jian Wushuang was not surprised about the answer. He had also heard from Long Qi that the war had broken out suddenly and many things were still unknown for many people. Dao Yuanzi said, but I know that in the war, many powerful sects united and attacked the terrain of the 7-star Black Sect, which mobilized all their power to fight the enemies. Though the enemies were so powerful, the 7-star Black Sect still managed to contain them. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Now Jian Wushuang could imagine how powerful the 7-star Black Sect was. So what was the final result of this battle? Jian Wushuang continued to ask. But Dao Yuanzi shook his head. Master, the battle was terribly fierce. I am just a nobody. At that time I was so scared that I hid from the war. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Dao Yuanzi had been very powerful in his prime, equivalent to an emperor of the eternal chaotic world. But with that power he was not capable of fighting in the war and had even had to hide. It seems that the ancient time was much stronger than I thought. Jian Wushuang murmured. But suddenly, something occurred to Jian Wushuang. He changed his tone and asked, you mentioned that you didn't participate in the war. But how can you explain your wound? You could only recover after so many years, so it must have been caused by a great power. Chapter 1806, Ancient Behind-the-Scenes Stories, Part 2, My Injury. Dao Yuanzi smiled bitterly. Master, my injury wasn't caused by a vigorous fight with an expert, but when the war was coming to an end, an expert made a formation that was barbaric and extremely terrifying. It forcefully absorbed all my divine power, including my blood essence. Formation. Jian Wushuang was stunned. Not only myself, but many experts who participated in the war also got their divine power and blood essence forcefully absorbed by the formation. After that, I was forced into a deep sleep and started to recover my power over the years. At first, although I was in a bad shape, as long as I am given enough time, I could recover. But who knows, since the war ended, the spiritual energy in the universe became thin at a terrifying speed. In less than 10,000 years, it was thin to a point I never imagined. In such an environment, my injury couldn't recover. Previously, when I created a blood devil clone, I spent years accumulating, but now, if the spiritual energy here hasn't become intense again, I don't know how long I have to take to recover, Dao Yuanzi said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang understood, but he was shocked. According to what Dao Yuanzi said, there were many ancient experts that hadn't died but were forced into a deep sleep because their divine power and blood essence were forcefully absorbed by the formation. As the spiritual energy was too thin, they couldn't recover. But then, with the formation that his master Xian Yi set up, the spiritual energy of the ancient battlefield was recovering quickly. By then, it had already reached the level of the 10 sanctuaries in eternal chaotic world, and it was recovering continuously. According to the recovery rate, it was just a matter of time until it reached the standard of ancient times. But then, the ancient experts who were in deep sleep in the ancient battlefield, would they wake up? Very possible. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. Dao Yuanzi could recover and the other ancient experts definitely could too. It was just a matter of time. Then, Jian Wushuang continued to ask Dao Yuanzi about the matters in ancient times. As Jian Wushuang got a simple understanding of ancient times, he was ever more astonished. The ferocity of ancient times was totally beyond Jian Wushuang's imagination. After a few questions, Jian Wushuang paused and said, "Last question. Do you know an expert named Xian Yi?" Xian Yi. Dao Yuanzi's face changed. His eyes looked horrified. It seems like you know him. Jian Wushuang could see the change in Dao Yuanzi's expression through Blood Mountain Sword. No, I don't know him, but I have heard of him, Dao Yuanzi said. During the battle back then, although I didn't know the reason behind the explosion of the Wei, I knew that it was related to an expert named Xian Yi. Besides, at the end of the war, the person who set up the huge formation to forcefully absorb every expert's divine power and blood essence was Xian Yi. What? Jian Wushuang quivered. The formation that appeared in the end of the ancient war to absorb the expert's divine power and blood essence, which caused ancient experts into a deep sleep, was set up by Xian Yi? Why? Master, Jian Wushuang muttered. He wanted to know more about ancient times and the behind-the-scenes stories of the ancient war. It was a pity that Dao Yuanzi was only an nonentity in the ancient war. He knew too little. Jian Wushuang couldn't determine what had happened. But Jian Wushuang was sure about one thing. His master Xian Yi was definitely related to the ancient war. The formation that could blend in with the space-time storm surrounding the battlefield was also created by Xian Yi. Its goal was not only to protect Green Fire World, but also to improvise the environment of the ancient battlefield. In turn, the experts who were in deep sleep in the battlefield could wake up. Master, who are you exactly? And what are you trying to do? Jian Wushuang bellowed in his heart. But he couldn't get any answer as of now. He had to grow stronger if he wanted to know. At least, he had to be on the peak of eternal chaotic world that could be evenly matched with Great Emperor. Jian Wushuang shook his head but didn't think further. Dao Yuanzi, remove owner recognition on your Chen Kuan ring and give it to me, Jian Wushuang commanded. The corners of Dao Yuanzi's lips twitched, but he didn't hesitate. He immediately removed owner recognition on his Chen Kuan ring. Jian Wushuang flipped his palm and Dao Yuanzi's Chen Kuan ring was in his hands. Then, Jian Wushuang immediately started to inspect it. Dao Yuanzi was an ancient expert after all. Although he wasn't anything big in ancient times, he was considered a super expert in eternal chaotic world. The things that he had in his Chen Kuan ring were priceless. Of course, because of severe injury, the elixirs and many natural treasures in Dao Yuanzi's Chen Kung ring had been used up. There was only some unique treasure left. There were also secret skills and rare books. But these things made Zhen Wushuang beam with joy. Haha, not bad. In addition to the resources that I obtained from killing many experts over the years, I can make a cultivation sanctuary for Greenfire World, just like Thunderbolt Island in Sanctuary Alliance. Zhen Wushuang laughed. He had killed multiple Sir Gods and even countless real gods. He had obtained countless resources that were suitable for cultivation. With the resources and some unique treasures, he should be able to build a Thunderbolt Island. Of course, the Thunderbolt Island was merely a metaphor. It was definitely not compatible with Thunderbolt Island of Sanctuary Alliance. To Greenfire World, where the strongest person was only a universe god in the second heaven, it was too useful. Even after Greenfire World grew and gave birth to real god, it would still be useful. Just then, Zhen Wushuang flicked his wrist and a drop of golden blood essence appeared in his hand from nowhere. The drop of golden blood essence, although its color wasn't pure, the power contained was enchanting, even for Zhen Wushuang. As Zhen Wushuang looked at the drop of blood essence, the ancient god blood essence in Zhen Wushuang's body instantly began to boil too. Dao Yuanzi, this should be the ancient tribe blood essence that you were talking about, right? Zhen Wushuang squinted his eyes. Yes, Dao Yuanzi nodded, I happened to get it by chance. It is blood essence of a pure ancient tribe expert. However, the ancient tribe expert wasn't strong, merely middle-stage chaotic realm. When I needed to recover my power in deep sleep, I consumed all elixirs and natural treasures, but I couldn't absorb the drop of ancient tribe blood essence. Chapter 1807, Wushuang City. What do you mean by saying that ancient gods were just a small bloodline of ancient clan? Zhen Wushuang asked. First I will explain the ancient clan. I mentioned that in the battle in the ancient times, there were many powerful clans uniting against 7-star ancient gods, and ancient clan was one of them. The inherent advantages of the ancient clan were much greater than those of the same level. Because the inherent advantages were so great, the clan was the most powerful one among the 4 great clans at that time, despite its relatively low number of members. And the ancient blood lineage that you have also derives from the ancient clan. After a pause, Dao Yuanzi continued, besides, as ancient gods, the ancient clan also had the blood lineage of ancient demons and the ancient devils. Only the combination of these 3 different bloods can compose a complete lineage of the ancient clan. Hearing this, Zhen Wushuang asked, that is to say, my bloodline of the ancient gods is not comparable to the blood of the ancient clan? Of course not. Even if you grow into the 10-star ancient god, your blood will still not be less powerful than that of strong talents of the ancient clan. Dao Yuanzi said. Zhen Wushuang was shocked. 10-star ancient god. Wasn't that the legendary ancient god emperor? The ancient god emperor was supreme and incomparable among ancient gods. But, he was still far weaker than members of the ancient clan. My lord, I once told you that in the ancient battlefield, there is a corpse of a strong man from the ancient clan, with the lineage of the ancient clan. You can inherit that lineage, which is far better than yours, if you go there. Dao Yuanzi said. Where is the corpse exactly? Asked Zhen Wushuang. Of course I know, Dao Yuanzi nodded. If you want to go, I can take you there at any time. Fine. I will decide later. Then Zhen Wushuang put away the Blood Mountain sword. My lord, the Dao Yuanzi was upset. He thought, I have told Zhen Wushuang so much but he still distrusts me. A waste of time for me. Of course, Dao Yuanzi only dared to say that in the bottom of his heart. Zhen Wushuang was sitting in the secret room. Hey, what do you think? Zhen Wushuang asked King of Venomous Worms. I have never heard of the ancient clan before, but from the blood essence you got from Dao Yuanzi's place, I can see that the power of the blood is truly more powerful than yours, so I think he is not lying. As for the corpse he mentioned, he also told the truth because now you can decide his life, but he never mentioned the danger of seeking the corpse. So it is clear that he is hiding some secrets. King of Venomous Worms smiled coldly. Of course, I can see his mind. But don't worry, when I finish the matter in the Greenfire World, I will go to the place he mentioned. If it's dangerous, I will leave directly. Zhen Wushuang smiled. King of Venomous Worms nodded. Then Jian Wushuang looked at the blood essence in his hands. I will see how strong this blood is. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and began to slowly absorb this drop of blood. Dao Yuanzi could not absorb the power of this drop of blood because he had no connection with the clan, but Jian Wushuang could. After all, ancient gods derived from the ancient clan. 1 month soon passed. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, and a fierce blast exploded. Dao Yuanzi was right. The blood lineage of the ancient clan is truly more powerful than ancient gods. After absorbing the blood, I feel my ancient god power has become greater. In addition, the 2 ancient god stars between his eyebrows that had been broken in the battle with Dao Yuanzi were repaired. But it is just a drop of blood essence. It is not of great use for me. What is really useful is the blood inheritance from the ancient clan. Jian Wushuang felt a desire to get it. But he didn't hurry. After that, Jian Wushuang mobilized many resources and combined them with his own power to establish a cultivation sacred place in Greenfire World. He located the place in a floating city. Jian Wushuang had put a lot of cultivation resources, including some peculiar treasures, all in the great city and built it with a lot of time and energy. This process took 500 years. Finally finished. Jian Wushuang was satisfied when he saw the splendid building. From now on, this city will be a holy place that many geniuses in the Greenfire World will yearn for. It has countless cultivation resources. Though they are far from being comparable to the Thunder Island of the Holy League or the Star Lineage, they can still be compared with those top places in the eternal chaotic world. In the future I can continue to perfect this city and attract geniuses in the green world and give them the best training. As for the name of this city, let's call it Wushuang City. Also on this day, the Greenfire World completed the Reformation. A large number of talents who belonged to the Greenfire Palace started their own establishments, but at the same time they still belonged to the Greenfire Palace. The leadership structure also changed. There were 5 new palace masters and on top of them, a top master. Of course, it was Jian Wushuang. After the reform, the Greenfire World gradually grew into a power that could challenge the 10 great cultivation sacred places or the Holy League. Chapter 1808, Crimson Lightning Region Disciple. This is a sword principle that I specially created for you according to the sword intention that you grasped. There is a total of 3 moves in this sword principle, but every move could be evolved into 33 sword stroke. Before you break through and become a real god, study this sword principle and it should be enough. Jian Wushuang passed his communication token to his lineal disciple, Lin Lan. Thank you, Master. Lin Lan took it gratefully. From today onwards, you shall stay in Wushuang City for cultivation. There are many opportunities in Wushuang City and sword principle took up the most. You must work hard, Jian Wushuang exhorted. Then, he looked at He Xiu, from now on, you shall cultivate in Wushuang City as well. There are 2 mystery lands that I created personally. It will be helpful for you too. At the same time, there will be a test in the 2 mystery lands. I will give you 3,000 years' time. Within the 3,000 years, if you can pass any one of the tests, I will take you in as my lineal disciple. I will definitely work hard for it. He Xiu was filled with excitement. Besides, as your swordsmanship is at a higher level than your seniors, if you were to be free during the years when you are cultivating in Wushuang City, help your senior along the way, Jian Wushuang said. Yes, He Xiu nodded. Junior, sorry to trouble you, Lin Lan said. Senior, don't mention it, He Xiu smiled. Jian Wushuang saw the scene. Although it wasn't shown on his face, he sighed in his heart. Although Lin Lan and He Xiu were his disciples and Lin Lan was his lineal disciple, in terms of talent, Lin Lan was born in Eternal World. She was considered decent in Greenfire World but she couldn't reach the peak. Compared to He Xiu, she was far behind. Even with Jian Wushuang's guidance, specially created sword principle, and the assistance of resources in Wushuang City, she would at most reach real god level and only be a void real god. It required luck to a certain extent to become a void real god. As for eternal real god, unless one received an opportunity, one wouldn't stand much chance. As for He Xiu, he was God's favored one. Not only was he talented, but his disposition was mature. He was under Zhen Wushuang and he had only been a registered disciple, but he was never anxious or impatient, nor did he complain. Even when he saw that Lin Lan was Zhen Wushuang's lineal disciple, he sure wasn't jealous at all. Zhen Wushuang appreciated this the most. If it was said that Lin Lan could only become a void real god at most, he sure definitely had the potential to become an almighty. Of course, to reach that level required a lot of time and effort. However, I have always been casual when it comes to taking in disciples. Regardless of talent, as long as I click with someone, no matter what their achievement is, they are my disciples. Zhen Wushuang smiled and waved his hands. Go ahead. He Xiu and Lin Lan walked to Wushuang City right away. Not just them, but as Wushuang City was built, Green Fire World had already started filtering geniuses. Actually, to be frank, it was a genius assembly. The genius assembly would happen every 1,000 years from then on. The ones who had performed outstandingly would stand a chance to cultivate in Wushuang City. Of course, the threshold to enter Wushuang City was naturally high. It was also to increase the intensity of competition between all forces in Green Fire World. After Zhen Wushuang had settled everything in Green Fire World, he went to Ancient World's Divine Land alone. However, it was a pity that to Ancient Worlds had gone through drastic changes in tens of thousands of years. When Zhen Wushuang returned to Divine Land, he felt foreign. In the end, he only found Sword Marquis Mansion's man with the assistance of Ancient Sect. As 10 of thousands of years passed, Sword Marquis Mansion no longer existed, but only a few descendants were left behind and scattered around. Zhen Wushuang had mentally prepared for it long ago. It is good enough that their bloodline has carried on. Zhen Wushuang smiled faintly. Back when he had entrusted Ancient Sect to take care of Sword Marquis Mansion, he had told them to ensure that Sword Marquis Mansion would carry on the bloodline. As for the rise and fall of Sword Marquis Mansion, it didn't matter. Even the great forces in Eternal Chaotic World would fall one day, let alone Sword Marquis Mansion in Ancient Worlds. Zhen Wushuang didn't stay for long in Ancient Worlds and he left right after. Then, Zhen Wushuang went to the ancient battlefield at the border. Zhen Wushuang was also attracted by the bloodline inheritance of ancient tribe experts. Under the lead of Dao Yuanzi, Zhen Wushuang arrived at a region where it was covered in crimson lightning. If I'm not mistaken, this should be Crimson Lightning region. Zhen Wushuang squinted his eyes. Dao Yuanzi, the ancient tribe dead body that you mentioned is really in here? My life depends on your whim. How could I lie to you? Dao Yuanzi said. Zhen Wushuang's face became solemn. He knew of the territory in front of him. Over the years, a large number of experts from Green Fire Palace had wandered in the battlefield. Hence, the region that they had explored was nothing compared to the entire battlefield. There were some places that were explored, just like the region that was covered by the flashes of crimson lightning. Green Fire Palace had kept a record of it and named it Crimson Lightning Region. Crimson Lightning Region wasn't huge but merely an expanse of about a few 100,000 miles in circumference. In the expanse of about a few 100,000 miles, it was engulfed in crimson lightning. The flashes of lightning were extremely powerful and it formed an ocean of lightning. With the coverage of crimson lightning, there was naturally no one who could step foot in Crimson Lightning region. At least, Green Fire Palace didn't have anyone who had entered Crimson Lightning region all these years. Those who had barged in were struck by the flashes of crimson lightning and turned into ashes. Hence, no one knew what was in Crimson Lightning region. The Crimson Lightning region is interesting. It could seal off my soul power. However, I could feel that although the flashes of crimson lightning in Crimson Lightning region could kill a real god, it would be insufficient to cause any effect on my divine body. Zhen Wushuang kept quiet for a while, then he made a decision. He slowly moved closer to Crimson Lightning region. The moment he stepped foot into Crimson Lightning region, the surrounding flashes of crimson lightning hemmed Zhen Wushuang in instantly. The power that the flashes of crimson lightning contained felt like it was going to break Zhen Wushuang into pieces. However, Zhen Wushuang had a shield made of divine power and blocked the crimson lightning off entirely while he continued to approach the depth of Crimson Lightning region. In a short time, he had already flown past more than half the distance, but he hadn't encountered any danger. Isn't it too smooth? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. The flashes of crimson lightning covering Crimson Lightning region gave Jian Wushuang a unique feeling. From what he saw, he thought it shouldn't be that easy to shuttle to and from the ocean of lightning, but he didn't feel any hindrance until then. Chapter 1809 Dao Soldiers. Dao Yuanzi, you must have entered the Crimson Lightning region before. So in the process, what did you encounter? Jian Wushuang asked. No, I was unimpeded all the way. Bloody thunder couldn't hurt me at all, Dao Yuanzi said. Oh, is that so? Jian Wushuang asked doubtfully. At that moment, Dao Yuanzi appeared innocent but actually didn't tell the truth. Idiot, I will not tell you even if it is dangerous. Dao Yuanzi thought. When Dao Yuanzi accidentally came to the Crimson Lightning region and the Thunder Sea, he knew that besides bloody thunder, there were also sacred thunders of extermination, which appeared occasionally. Dao Yuanzi had encountered a sacred thunder of extermination once, but he was immune. But Jian Wushuang will have no time to respond, so he will be doomed to die. Once he dies, I can survive and escape, Dao Yuanzi murmured. Please come, sacred thunder of extermination. But Dao Yuanzi was unaware that Jian Wushuang was vigilant. Once Jian Wushuang was threatened by a crisis, he would not hesitate to kill Dao Yuanzi first. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang did not encounter the destruction of the gods and the journey to the bloody Thunder Sea was all right. After crossing the Thunder Sea, Jian Wushuang saw a vast open space, in the middle of which lay a huge corpse. This corpse was as tall as tens of thousands of feet. Even though it had collapsed many years ago, it still had an incomparable power. Seeing this corpse, Jian Wushuang got excited. You were not lying. There is indeed a corpse of a strong man from the ancient clan here. Jian Wushuang smiled as he noticed that at the forefront of the huge corpse, there was a grey light in between the eyebrows. The light was very weak, and Jian Wushuang couldn't see what it was. My lord, the grey light should be the blood lineage left by that strong talent, but it is very difficult to get it, said Dao Yuanzi. Oh, what do you mean? Asked Jian Wushuang. On the way to the corpse, there are hidden Dao soldiers, which may have been left by the dead strongman when he collapsed. Those Dao soldiers will prevent incomers from reaching the corpse. I also wanted to approach the corpses, but at that moment I hadn't recovered yet, so I was defeated by the soldiers. So how could you know that the strong man left his blood lineage when you haven't approached it at all? Jian Wushuang questioned Dao Yuanzi. Well, Dao Yuanzi paused for a long time and said, I guessed it. Jian Wushuang knew Dao Yuanzi didn't always tell the truth. But one thing was for sure. There was indeed a grey light in between the eyebrows. Even though it was not lineage blood, it would be very important. How powerful are those soldiers? Jian Wushuang asked. They are weaker than human cultivators, equivalent to the early stage of chaos gems, but on the journey you will meet a lot of them, said Dao Yuanzi. Jian Wushuang was worried. The early stage of chaos gem had the same power as Sir Gods. And there might be many soldiers. It would not be so easy to get to the corpse. Anyway, I will try. Jian Wushuang murmured, and then approached the corpse. But soon, many Dao soldiers with bronze armor appeared. There was a sudden sound as the ground cracked, followed by the appearance of burly figures. These soldiers were all the same in their appearance and size, and they all had a bronze-colored axe in their hands. 6 Dao soldiers in total. Jian Wushuang started to generate his power. At that moment, the 6 soldiers all rushed toward him. Bang! 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 He saw 6 bright bronze lights shimmering, and 6 axes went to Jian Wushuang. Go to hell! Jian Wushuang waved his swords, the power of which forced 6 soldiers back. These Daoist soldiers have only reached the level of the General Sir Gods, and their swordsmanship is just mediocre. They can't stop me. He was only tens of thousands of miles away from the corpse. Usually he could easily pass through the distance, but this time, because of the numerous soldiers, the journey would take longer. The ground split, and many soldiers rushed out one by one. In the instant, Jian Wushuang was surrounded by 100 soldiers. Most of the soldiers were bronze-armored soldiers, but at the forefront there were 4 Dao soldiers wearing silver armor. They were obviously stronger than those in bronze. Jian Wushuang guessed that they would be of the level of an emperor god. At that moment, they all rushed to Jian Wushuang like wasps. Chapter 18:10, Wu Hun Jian Wushuang, don't waste your time with them. Just rush over, King of Venomous Worms said in Jian Wushuang's head. I share the same idea. Jian Wushuang concentrated his gaze. As the Dao soldiers charged at him, the billowing ancient god power flowed out. His figure grew tremendously to 3 meters tall. At the same time, there were heads and arms that extended from his body. Ancient god unique skill, 6 heads, and 12 arms. Each and every one of his 12 arms was holding a sword. Besides, there were 2 resplendent golden lights that swept out. They were 2 Hongjung golden swords. Die. Jian Wushuang rushed forward and instantly fought with the Dao soldiers. Bang! 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 There were deafening noises resonating continuously, and there were Dao soldiers flying off from the impact. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang relied on the advantage of his power and strength, and also his close combat skills to move forward in the besiegement. In a short while, Hong! Jian Wushuang then landed on the ancient tribe expert's dead body. Then, the Dao soldiers that were chasing after him stopped simultaneously and returned underground. Jian Wushuang smiled at the sight. It seems that the Dao soldiers' order is only to hinder people from getting close to the dead body. As long as the person arrives at the dead body, they will immediately stop, Jian Wushuang said. After barging through the obstruction of the Dao soldiers, Jian Wushuang turned to look to the highest part of the dead body, which was where the dim light was. Jian Wushuang moved and he appeared before the dim light very quickly. At that moment, Jian Wushuang finally saw the appearance of the dim light clearly. It was actually a human figure. Yes, it was a human figure, but the method of existence was extremely unique. When Jian Wushuang came before it, the human figure that looked like nothing suddenly opened its eyes and looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange gaze. Jian Wushuang was stunned. This feeling, is it consciousness? Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and bowed politely. Greetings, senior, I am Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang? A loud and bright voice was heard from the figure. My name is Wu Hun, I am an ancient tribe. Senior Wu Hun, Jian Wushuang greeted again. I have been in the battlefield for a very, very long time. It has been so many years and you are the first to appear before me. Not too long ago, although there was someone who barged in, it's a pity that he wasn't capable enough to come before me, Wu Hun smiled faintly. Jian Wushuang understood that the person that Wu Hun was talking about should be Dao Yuanzi. The battlefield that he was in was sealed off from the world. Only the people in Green Fire World would wander around the battlefield. However, Green Fire World was still too weak. There wasn't anyone who could explore places like Crimson Lightning region. As a result, Jian Wushuang was the first person that appeared before Wu Hun after all these years. I passed away many years ago, but only a slight bit of my consciousness remained. I wonder how the outside world is now. Jian Wushuang, tell me, Wu Hun said. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. He briefly told him about everything he knew that had happened after the ancient war, including the new pattern of the world. Ancient times? First era? Second era? Wu Hun laughed when he heard. That's interesting. I never expected the world to become like this, especially the strongest expert is only peak chaotic realm. The war back then seems to have had a major influence. Senior Wu Hun, you should know a lot about the war in ancient times, right? Jian Wushuang asked. Wu Hun's power in ancient times seemed to be much stronger than Dao Yuanzi's. He definitely knew more secrets than him too. Wu Hun shook his head slowly when he heard Jian Wushuang's assumption. I do know some about the ancient war, but I can't tell you. Sometimes, it isn't a good thing to know more. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows, but he didn't force Wu Hun. Jian Wushuang, you have an ancient tribe bloodline in you, but it isn't complete. The purpose of your visit today should be about my bloodline inheritance, right? Wu Hun asked. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. Bloodline inheritance, millimeter. I do have bloodline inheritance here. Wu Hun said as he flipped his jade-like palm. Then, A pearl that was concentrated with blood essence appeared in his hands. The moment the pearl appeared, Zhen Wushuang could feel the ancient god blood in him suddenly boil and shake vigorously. There was an unprecedented desire that soared up. Such desire was the desire for a bloodline. Bloodline inheritance is here. As for if you can get it, it depends on you, Wu Han said. Seniors' advice and comments are appreciated. Zhen Wushuang was extremely humble. Wu Han smiled and he waved his other hand. On the chest of the dead body under them, there was suddenly a resplendent light. The light was a blurry stone stele. The stone stele gave out an ancient yet magnificent aura, and it was covered with a secret pattern that was complicated and unique. I have been in the battlefield for too long. At first, I really wanted to look for a suitable genius that was outstanding to inherit my bloodline. But as time passed, I dismissed this intention of mine. Now, I am happy enough to just pass the bloodline inheritance to someone. There's no need for a strong, gifted talent. As long as you reach the fundamental requirements, that will do. The fundamental requirement is very simple. The stone stele in front of you contains a secret skill. The secret skill is exclusive to ancient tribe. Its name is immemorial celestial body. It is a secret skill of body refinery. As long as you have complete ancient tribe blood, you can cultivate this. There are 7 volumes in the secret skill. What you need to do now is to comprehend the first volume from the stele. Your time limit is 1,000 years. In 1,000 years, if you are able to comprehend the first volume of immemorial celestial body, I will pass my blood inheritance to you. I have already reduced the threshold to the lowest. If it was when I first passed away, the rule that I had set was for one to comprehend the first 3 volumes in 1,000 years. If you can't even fulfill the lowest criteria, I'd rather my bloodline disappear entirely than pass it to trash, Wu Han said. I understand. Zhen Wushuang nodded heavily. Then, he turned around and looked at the grey stone stele that was covered in the secret pattern. He took a deep breath and sat down in front of the stele. Chapter 1811, Immemorial Celestial Body. In front of the grey stone tablet, Zhen Wushuang stood calmly. He didn't hurry to learn the immemorial celestial body. He had 1,000 years. No need to hurry. Dao Yuanzi, Sword Wu asked, have you heard of the immemorial celestial body? Immemorial celestial body? Dao Yuanzi was shocked. Has the strong man left this here? No. Just answer my question. Do you know or not? Zhen Wushuang said. Of course I know. Dao Yuanzi nodded. Immemorial celestial body is the strongest cultivation secret skills of the ancient clan, as definitely among the top 10 in the whole universe. Unfortunately, only the pure ancient clan blood descendants can cultivate it. Other people cannot benefit from it even if they get it. It seems that it's a good secret skill. Zhen Wushuang smiled. The ancient world was so powerful with numerous excellent secret skills, far better than the current eras. And this immemorial celestial body was ranked among the top 10 skills, so it was obvious how powerful it was. The immemorial celestial body, as well as the lineage inheritance of Wu Han, will be beneficial to me, Zhen Wushuang thought, and started to learn. There were many mysterious lines in the grey stone monument, and the immemorial celestial body was within those lines. As Zhen Wushuang was learning, Wu Han was thinking. The immemorial celestial body is the supreme secret skill of the ancient clan. Back then, many talents could learn it and acquire it, but nowadays the situation is different. Few people are qualified. In ancient times, strong talents were as countless as stars. The reason was that the cultivation environment of ancient times was much more superior. Environment decides the quality of talents. Because of the great environment, there were many talents far more powerful than the current days. Some of the most top-notch talents in the eternal chaotic world were just ordinary in the ancient time. Therefore, although Wu Han had already lowered his requirements to the lowest level for Zhen Wushuang, he was still unsure whether Zhen Wushuang could realize the first volume of the immemorial celestial body. Wu Han hoped that Zhen Wushuang could succeed. Well, I have waited for a long time for this little guy to come to me, and he happens to have the blood lineage of the ancient clan. I don't want to lose the opportunity. He didn't want his own blood lineage to dissipate forever. He needed a descendant. I will see you later. Wu Hun closed his eyes again. The entire Crimson Lightning region was completely quiet. Jian Wushuang fully concentrated on the learning, and soon 150 years passed. In front of the grey stone tablet, Jian Wushuang, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly opened his eyes, and his face was revealing a smile of joy. Later, he took out a token and began to record something in the token. After a while, he stood up and went to Wu Hun Senior Wu Hun. Jian Wushuang was respectful. Wu Hun opened his eyes. Hey, little guy, what doubts have you encountered on the way? None. Everything goes well and I have solved my doubts along the way. Even if I have doubts, I have solved it myself. Now I have finished the first volume of the immemorial celestial body. I have fully realized it. Jian Wushuang said. How can that be possible? Wu Hun was astonished. You only spent 150 years. This is the record I made. Please have a look. Jian Wushuang handed the token he had recorded to Wu Hun. After picking up the token and reading, Wu Hun was shocked. No mistakes. You really realize the secret skills. He had never imagined that Jian Wushuang could not only meet his requirements, but would finish the task within only 150 years. With that speed, he can fully comprehend the first 3 volumes, and even comprehend the first 4 volumes of the immemorial celestial body. Genius, great genius. Even in my time, he could definitely be the top genius. Few people could do that. I collapsed for 5 years and lost hope to inherit my blood lineage. But at the last minute, I have been fortunate enough to meet such a top genius. Haha, God favors me. Wu Hun was very excited. But he remained calm before Jian Wushuang. Since you have met my requirements, from now on, you are my descendant. I know you may have other masters or have inherited other lineages, but that doesn't matter. You only need to know that the blood of the ancient clan is derived from me, which is enough. This is my blood heritage, take it. Wu Hun gave the light beads that were completely condensed by the blood essence to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang received the bead and his ancient god lineage started to vibrate violently. Just do the inheritance here so that I can also give you some advice, Wu Hun said. Chapter 1812, Bloodline Inheritance Millimeter. Jian Wushuang nodded and immediately started inheriting under Wu Hun's guidance. The pearl that was concentrated with blood essence was absorbed into Jian Wushuang's body directly. Bloodline inheritance, Jian Wushuang had done it once. It was many years ago. He had received King of Venomous Worms owner, King Luozhen's bloodline inheritance. However, the bloodline inheritance back then had required Jian Wushuang to spend a large amount of time and effort to absorb and refine King Luozhen's blood essence. In the end, not only had he received King Luozhen's bloodline, he had even received part of King Luozhen's power. It was a pity that Jian Wushuang had forcefully absorbed the rest of the drop of blood essence during a fierce fight, which had led to the interruption of inheritance. In the end, Jian Wushuang had only managed to get a complete royal ancient god bloodline. Wu Hun's method was obviously much superior to King Luozhen. The bloodline inheritance that Wu Hun had left behind had only contained a complete ancient tribe bloodline but didn't carry any power. As such, it wouldn't affect Jian Wushuang at all. Besides, the speed of inheritance was really quick. It did not take a long time. It only took 10 years until the bloodline inheritance was completed. On the huge dead body, Jian Wushuang sat quietly and his body was covered with a layer of faint black jade luster. His body was obviously one size more muscular than before as his muscles bulged. There were originally 6 ancient god stars that were hanging upside down in between his eyebrows, but then it had become 7 stars. Yes, there were 7 stars. The 7 ancient god stars weren't dark gold but had become black jade. Black jade ancient god stars? Jian Wushuang muttered, then he quickly shook his head. No, it shouldn't be referred to as an ancient god star. His bloodline had already transformed. He wasn't an ancient god but a complete ancient tribe then. He possessed the ancient tribe bloodline. As for the quadrangular star in between his eyebrows, they were a fountain of ancient tribe strength. Every single quadrangular star contained boundless power of ancient tribe bloodline. The power of the bloodline was very strong. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and there was an explosion in the void. He felt that his random punch without divine power but with only power of ancient tribe bloodline could easily break a hole in the void that was tens of thousands of miles in circumference. My power has improved. Jian Wushuang was sure about it. There was no doubt about it. Even if his bloodline didn't transform completely, as he accumulated 7 stars and became a 7-star royal ancient god, his power of ancient god should be at the level of an almighty. Then, his bloodline transformed completely and became a 7-star ancient tribe expert. Jian Wushuang's power of bloodline already surpassed the standard of ordinary Sir God. If not mistaken, my power of bloodline alone shouldn't be weaker than an ordinary Sir God's, if not stronger. In addition to my divine power of 3rd stage ultimate real God, the combination of the two, in terms of power, I should be stronger than an emperor god by double or more. Jian Wushuang's eyes were shimmering with excitement. One's power at the level of Sir God or Emperor God would be vastly different even if it was only 10 to 20% of increment. Double? In terms of power itself, it doubled? What was that? Now, I don't need to perform any secret skills but a casual hit will explore with ferocious power and it should easily hit an ordinary Sir God to death. If I were to perform various skills and secret skills with my all, especially Ancient God secret skills, Ancient God belonged to Ancient Clan. Hence, an expert with Ancient Tribe bloodline naturally could perform Ancient God unique skill and secret skill, and it would be even more powerful. His power had increased tremendously. Jian Wushuang's overall power had increased tremendously after the bloodline inheritance ended. There might still be a slight distance between his current power and the top of Emperor God, but he was definitely very close. At first, not only did I prepare bloodline inheritance, I also prepared to pass down Ancient Tribe unique skill and secret skill. However, I have been on the battlefield for too long and my remaining consciousness has reached my weakest point. I can't complete those. Hence, you could only slowly look for other Ancient Tribe inheritance when your power grows stronger in the future, Wu Hun sighed. Jian Wushuang shrugged but he didn't mind. To him, it was great that he had received an Ancient Tribe bloodline. As for Ancient Tribe secret skill and unique skill, he wouldn't consider them just yet. Oh yeah, Senior Wu Hun, could you give me the stone stele that recorded immemorial celestial body? Or can I stay back to comprehend the secret skill completely? Jian Wushuang asked. Just bring the stone stele with you, Wu Hun smiled. On top of that, I have another thing for you. As Wu Hun spoke, he waved and there was a crimson flowing light that soared up from the huge dead body and plunged over. When the flowing light got closer, Jian Wushuang saw that the flowing light was actually a crimson armor. The armor looked rusty and it was dim. This armor is called 5-gem armor. I paid a great price to get an expert to make this back then. It is really powerful. There were a few times when I was in danger that I survived because of this armor. However, when the terrifying war descended, the armor was severely damaged in the ferocious fight. 90% of this armor is damaged, which was the reason that I lost my life. However, although the armor is left with only 10% of its power, it should be more than sufficient for you, Wu Hun said and threw the crimson armor at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang immediately caught the crimson armor and he looked at it with his eyes shimmering with joy. Although the armor was broken, Jian Wushuang could still feel that it was remarkable. To a cultivator, armor was too useful. Since Jian Wushuang had started cultivation, he had received 2 suitable armors in total. One was blood-killing plate armor and it was from Dao Yuanzi's Blood Devil clone. Quoting Dao Yuanzi, he had said that blood-killing plate armor and Holocaust sect's vicious secret skills were obtained from the hands of an expert who had passed away in the ancient battlefield. Jian Wushuang wasn't sure if it was true or false, but he was certain the Holocaust sect that was in the dark side of eternal chaotic world might have existed since ancient time. As for the second armor, it was blood feather reincarnation armor from lineage of star. Although it was powerful, it was just something of little value to Jian Wushuang then, but he was reluctant to give it up. But then, he had received a 5-gem armor. The armor was one of Wu Hun's reliances back when he had marched in ancient times. Chapter 1813, Sword Slave. Unfortunately, I lost nearly all of my treasures in that fierce battle. Only this piece of 5-gem armor is for you. It is also severely broken. Thank you. Zhen Wushuang was very grateful. Predecessor, could you please do me another favor? Say it. Wu Hun was very patient. I have a slave, and he was a strong man in the ancient times. Zhen Wushuang talked about Dao Yuanzi and their subtle relationship. So, do you want to completely erase his own consciousness and completely control him? Wu Hun asked. Yes, only in this way will there be no risk. I wonder if you can help me. Zhen Wushuang asked. Yes, let your slave come out first. Zhen Wushuang nodded, and immediately waved his sword and released Dao Yuanzi. My lord. Dao Yuanzi immediately vowed to the sword, and when he saw Wu Hun, he was shocked. He had stayed in the sword and he knew what was happening outside, but he couldn't hear the conversation between Zhen Wushuang and Wu Hun. You are Dao Yuanzi? Wu Hun asked with a powerful voice. Dao Yuanzi looked at Wu Hun, and felt something bad was happening. Suddenly, he was struck by a great soul power. Dao Yuanzi got scared. He now knew what was happening. You want to erase my consciousness? You can never do that. Dao Yuanzi resisted violently. The strength of this resistance had even caused some difficulties for Wu Hun. Be quiet. Zhen Wushuang exerted some power onto Dao Yuanzi. Bastard, I have already surrendered to you. You kept me with you and even want to control my soul? I would rather die than let you succeed. Dao Yuanzi snarled wildly, and with his roar, his soul began to burn. For a practitioner, their soul being controlled was much more miserable than being dead. Wu Hun increased his power and exerted to Dao Yuanzi's body. Ah! Dao Yuanzi screamed, his voice hysterical. But the screams only lasted for a while. After a while, he completely calmed down. He stood there without awareness. Seeing this scene, Wu Hun was relieved and said, Fortunately, your slave is in a state of serious injury. Plus you have left a soul stamp on him. Otherwise, it is absolutely difficult to rely on my remaining consciousness to completely erase his consciousness. While talking, the shape of Wu Hun became more transparent, as if it was going to dissipate at any time. Zhen Wushuang understood. There had been little consciousness left in Wu Hun's body, and it was used to erase the consciousness of Dao Yuanzi, so Wu Hun had little energy left and he was going to dissipate. Thank you for your kindness, I will remember it forever. Zhen Wushuang said solemnly. I am glad to meet you. It is you that helped me. It is my fortune. If you really want to thank me, you should work hard to cultivate. If one day you become the very top one of the world, tell the other people of the ancient clan that you are the descendant of Wu Hun, then I will die without regret. Ha ha. Wu Hun's laughter still echoed in the heavens for a long time, but the shape of him was gradually becoming transparent under the gaze of Zhen Wushuang. Then, Zhen Wushuang stood up and looked at Dao Yuanzi. At this moment, Dao Yuanzi was completely different from how he had been before. His own consciousness has been completely erased, and now I will directly control him. Zhen Wushuang exerted the power into Dao Yuanzi's mind. Dao Yuanzi couldn't resist at all. Soon, Zhen Wushuang had completely controlled his soul. My lord. Dao Yuanzi greeted Zhen Wushuang, his eyes full of respect like never before. He had totally changed. From today, you are my first sword servant. Your name is now Zhen Yi. Yes, my lord. Zhen Wushuang nodded with satisfaction and then looked around. I have inherited the blood lineage of Wu Hun. So maybe I can conquer the consciousness of those soldiers just like Wu Hun did. Zhen Wushuang wanted to have a try. Though those Dao soldiers were not powerful individually, they could be a useful tool when hundreds of them fought together. Try it out. Zhen Wushuang stepped forward. Around Wu Hun's corpse, many Dao soldiers rose. But this time, Zhen Wushuang felt different. Dao soldiers were created with the blood essence of the ancient clan, with a purpose to protect Wu Hun's body. So Zhen Wushuang could easily conquer them as now he had inherited Wu Hun's blood. Chapter 1814 Communication. In an hour's time, The Dao soldiers surrounding Wu Hun's dead body submitted. Haha, a total of 132 Dao soldiers. Among them there were 128 bronze-armored Dao soldiers and 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers. Although they don't have consciousness, they only knew to follow their owner's command blindly but don't know how to fight at close quarters. They should be able to fight evenly with a Sir God as long as there are 10 bronze-armored Dao soldiers. With so many Dao soldiers, they could totally fight with over 10 Sir Gods. With the 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers, they could fight evenly with an Emperor God. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He had gained a bountiful harvest from the trip to Crimson Lightning region. Not only had he received an ancient tribe bloodline inheritance and his power had increased tremendously, he had also gotten himself immemorial celestial body and 5 gem armor. At the same time, he had soul-controlled an expert, Jian Yi. He had also reduced the Dao soldiers to submission, ancient battlefield. This is the ancient battlefield with endless opportunities. Jian Wushuang's eyes were shimmering with hope. He finally understood why the experts in Eternal Chaotic World desired Ancient Mystery Land so badly. However, although Ancient Mystery Land was also an ancient battlefield, it had been opened many times and every time it had opened, a large number of experts had flooded in. Many opportunities were already taken. The ancient battlefield surrounding Green Fire World was different. On the battlefield, besides the ancient experts who were in a deep sleep, only Jian Wushuang who possessed the power of an almighty could wander there. In other words, he had conquered the huge ancient battlefield alone. If the experts in Eternal Chaotic World were to find out, they would definitely be green with envy. The ancient battlefield has endless opportunities. 50,000 years ago, I was too weak and I couldn't find anything. But now, I can wander and search through this place, Jian Wushuang muttered. There's no hurry. Let me return to Green Fire World for now. Jian Wushuang immediately returned to Green Fire World. When he passed by the Ocean of Crimson Lightning again, he heard from Jian Yi about the threat hidden in the Ocean of Crimson Lightning. Humph. As expected, Dao Yuanzi did hide things from me. He knew that Ocean of Crimson Lightning contained sacred thunder of extermination, but he didn't mention it to me. He wanted me to be killed by the sacred thunder of extermination so that he could escape my control, Jian Wushuang sneered. After he found out, he was naturally extra cautious when he passed through the Ocean of Crimson Lightning, but he didn't encounter any sacred thunder of extermination. Jian Wushuang finally returned to Green Fire World after some time. The Supreme Sanctuary of Green Fire World, Wushuang City. After the filtration of the Genius Assembly by Green Fire World, there were only 100 geniuses who received the chance to cultivate in Wushuang City. The cultivation time was limited to 1,000 years. Besides the geniuses, there were some higher-ups in Green Fire World that had paid a great price to cultivate in Wushuang City as well. By then, Wushuang City had been built for 100 years. The geniuses and experts who cultivated in the city had realized the benefits of cultivating there. Hence, they were naturally dying to enter. However, Jian Wushuang understood that Green Fire World had just settled down and Wushuang City had been built not too long ago. It wouldn't be realistic if he hoped to see results so quickly. The result would only show itself in another few thousand years. Wushuang City is where spiritual energy concentrated the most in Green Fire World. Jian Yi, from today, you shall stay in Wushuang City. I will provide you with resources to recover your power. I hope your power can be recovered in the shortest time possible, Jian Wushuang said. Yes, Jian Yi nodded politely. Previously, Jian Wushuang had yet to take control of Dao Yuanzi entirely. Hence, he kept his guard up and didn't dare to give him any chance to recover his power. But then, it was entirely different. Dao Yuanzi's consciousness had been wiped off. There was only Jian Yi, who was loyal to Jian Wushuang. Naturally, the greater Jian Yi's power, the better. If Jian Yi's power could recover to his peak, he would be a peak chaotic realm, which equaled to a great emperor. Also, as an ancient expert, his skills and power would be extraordinary. Even among great emperors, he should be an absolute expert as well. Among great emperors in Eternal Chaotic World, only Emperor Bai, who was widely recognized as the strongest, would be able to place himself above Jian Yi. However, Jian Wushuang also knew that it wouldn't be that easy to fully recover Jian Yi's power. Besides Jian Yi, Jian Wushuang had also left 100 bronze-armored Dao soldiers in Wushuang City. These Dao soldiers obeyed Jian Wushuang's command to safeguard Wushuang City. The rest of the 28 bronze-armored Dao soldier and 4 silver-armored Dao soldiers, Jian Wushuang took with him. After all, he was going to wander at the surrounding ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield was filled with danger and many mysterious places. Jian Wushuang didn't dare to probe hastily, but he could utilize the Dao soldiers. If there were to be danger, it would be nothing to lose a few Dao soldiers. After making arrangements for Jian Yi and the Dao soldiers, Jian Wushuang called for his disciple, He Xiu. Master, He Xiu stood before Jian Wushuang with respect. You have cultivated in Wushuang City for over 100 years. How do you feel? Jian Wushuang asked. Although Wushuang City's cultivation resources couldn't be compared favorably with lineage of stars, it isn't far behind, especially the spiritual energy here. It is so intense and there are many opportunities in Wushuang City that are aimed at sword cultivators. Hence, to me, cultivation in Wushuang City is of greater help than cultivation in lineage of star, He Xiu replied honestly. How about your senior? Jian Wushuang asked. She improved quite well and she has reached the limit of Universe Master. Her first God's test will be coming soon, He Xiu answered. Millimeter, Jian Wushuang nodded faintly and commanded, I came here today to tell you that I reckon I will stay in my hometown for quite some time. It is not necessary for you to stay here. If you want to wander outside, go ahead. I only ask that you do not share any information about this place after you leave. I understand. He Xiu nodded heavily and smiled. Hall Master Yuan happened to send me a message a while back. He said that he needed me to take care of some errands. I was going to inform you. Hall Master Yuan sent a message to you. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. You have been in Wushuang City all this while. You never left, so how did Hall Master Yuan send you a message? Could it be? With confusion, Jian Wushuang took out a communication token. In a short while, the other side of the token responded. As expected, Jian Wushuang was surprised. This battlefield can communicate with the outside world now? Chapter 1815 Chillywind Valley. The ancient battlefield where the Green Fire world was located had always been completely isolated from the outside world. Even when tribes from the Jin King went there and died in the battle, the outside world knew nothing about it because the battlefield could not communicate with the outside world. But now, Jian Wushuang had found that this battlefield could already communicate with the outside world. He sent a message to Hall Master Yuan, and the latter received it and sent another back to Jian Wushuang. The time and space of this battlefield has completely changed. Jian Wushuang looked up at the sky. He knew that the change was due to a large array of time and space storms created by his master. Before the Qing dynasty, it was completely isolated from the outside world, but now, at least it has allowed communication. I don't know if this is good or bad. Jian Wushuang felt worried and sighed. After reporting the situation to Master Hall Yuan, Jian Wushuang went alone to the huge ancient battlefield, where he would spend a long time. In the ancient battlefield, there were countless unique places, opportunities, and also dangers, which were waiting for Jian Wushuang to explore. The first place Jian Wushuang wanted to go was the Chillywind Valley. It was the first place that Jian Wushuang had discovered and named. It was also a mysterious place. The Chillywind Valley was a huge, innocent pothole from which there would be a gush of chilly winds bursting out at regular intervals, just like a volcanic eruption. When Jian Wushuang arrived there, he was almost killed by the bloody cold wind that suddenly sprouted. Soon Jian Wushuang realized that some treasures with strong yin power were hiding there. It was very likely to be a chaos divine treasure. But unfortunately, the Chillywind Valley was too dangerous. When Jian Wushuang had been about to leave the Green Fire world 50,000 years ago, he had wanted to explore it, but he did not enter the valley. Until now. I'm going to have a look. Jian Wushuang looked at the huge, dark hole in front of him with a smile. He did not immediately enter the pothole, but waited for a while. Bang! The ground started to shake and the mountain swayed, and the violent roar sounded loudly. Then, Jian Wushuang saw the wind vented and smashed everything in the world. It took 10 breaths' time to gradually subside. After the wind dissipated, Jian Wushuang waved his hands and a group of bronze-armored Dao soldiers appeared. They were controlled by Jian Wushuang's consciousness. Go! Immediately, this bronze-armored soldiers did not hesitate to go directly into the Chilliwind Valley. When Jian Wushuang had explored this Chilliwind Valley 50,000 years ago, he had tried his best to go down 100,000 miles toward the bottom of the valley, and then he had not dared to move forward again. But this time, the Dao soldiers went 300,000 miles in one breath. But still, Jian Wushuang couldn't see the bottom. It was too deep. By controlling the consciousness of the bronze armor Dao soldiers, he could clearly see everything that the soldiers encountered. The soldiers continued to plunge for 1,000,000 miles until the bottom of the valley was finally seen. At the bottom of the valley, there was a piece of white jade. A huge white jade. The surface of the jade was extremely smooth, but the most important thing was its power. The jade had extremely strong, yin-like power. Jian Wushuang could feel it so strongly even through the Dao soldier's consciousness. Is this only a jade? Jian Wushuang murmured, and guided the bronze-armored Dao soldiers to approach. Soon, he appeared in front of this jade, and he could see the jade. I have never seen this kind of jade. Jian Wushuang murmured. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang saw the inner layer of the jade, where there was a bright white light. Jian Wushuang looked at the white light and finally, he realized something. It's not a jade. It's a person. But just as he saw the white light clearly, the figure covered in the white light also opened his eyes, and bloody lightning came out. In an instant, the lightning passed through the jade and directly hit the body of the bronze-armored Dao soldiers. The bronze-armor Dao soldiers were made by the blood essence of the ancient clan, and their bodies were extremely hard. However, under the bloody lightning, they were instantly shattered and the consciousness that Jian Wushuang had attached to them also went away. Wrong, I got it wrong. Jian Wushuang realized. It's not a treasure hidden in the bottom, but a strong man from ancient times, and I broke into the bottom of the yin wind and woke up the ancient strongman. Escape, hurry. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate, and immediately turned and ran wildly. Jian Wushuang felt alarmed by such ancient strong men. Furthermore, the strongman was so strong. After all, those Dao soldiers were so tough that Jian Wushuang had found it hard to smash them. But the strong man had done it. Obviously, he was far stronger than Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang ran with full speed and soon, he suddenly stopped. Because less than 10 miles away there appeared a figure in the void. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.